That's true.
Yeah. Downtown, downtown.
I'm duplicitous.
All right. We're good, folks. We're gonna go. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our May 22nd Portsmouth Town Council meeting. Before we begin, I just need to go through the evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency, there's two doors on your left, another one in the front of council chambers. We would exit the building, cross Middle Road, and await further instruction at the school administration building. If we could now stand for our pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence for our men and women serving in harm's way. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. One nation. Thank you all. Hey, little bit of housekeeping. We are streaming our council meeting tonight. So those of you that are participating via Zoom, there's an icon to raise your hand and you'll be called upon. If you're calling in on your phone, *6 will allow you to mute and unmute your phone. *9 will indicate you have a question. If you're participating remotely or in person tonight, please state your name and address for the town clerk. And with that, we will begin with our roll call.
Mr. Katzman,
Here.
Ms. Abbott,
Here.
Mr. Gleason,
Here.
Mr. Hamilton,
Here.
Mr. Levesque,
Here.
Dr. Ryan,
Here.
Mr. Aguirre.
Here. Okay. Next, we have a President's executive summary. We did not have any executive sessions prior to tonight's meeting, so I do not have any updates. And we will begin with our consent agenda.
Move to approve as presented. Seconded.
All those in favor?
Mr. Katzman,
Aye.
Ms. Abbott,
Aye.
Mr. Gleason,
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Levesque,
Aye.
Dr. Ryan,
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, next we'll be sitting as the Board of License Commissioners. First item is peddler license, mobile food establishment new. First one is it's a Martinez Food Truck LLC, DBA BBQ Emas, 3 Sylvania Road, Portsmouth.
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Katzman,
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Lebec?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next, it's peddler license, Moving Dough Pizza Company, 1 Industrial Court, Riverside.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Lebec?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next, it's a peddler's license, annual new, Emily Sorleen, DBA Queen of Bones, 90 Chapin Ave, Providence.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Lebec?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. And last item, it's a daily liquor license, Class F, Common Fence Point Improvement Association, 933 Anthony Road, for a block party on June 10th, 2023, from 5:30 to 9 p.m.
Move to approve.
Mr. President, if I may.
Yep.
Chief of Police was informed by this organization that they were going to pull this from the agenda. It didn't happen. He had a number of concerns that had not been complied with. He's dealing with an investigation right now, couldn't be here, and asked that I would relay that concern.
Okay, so.
I withdraw my motion.
Table to our next meeting. Motion
Um,
to table to our next meeting.
Seconded.
Actually,
Oh, that's June
it's,
10th. This is before.
it's before then,
So we'd have to have a special meeting.
if they keep it.
Excuse me, I understand talking to Chief Peters that they're just going to do a BYOB event and bypass the licensing process unless they decide to bring in a caterer and he'll have his own license. So they're going to work around this procedure.
So they don't need it.
They don't need it.
Okay.
We can't take any action anyway until they tell us what they want. So
Well, we
that's my
could,
point.
we could approve it conditionally. But yeah, with the chief approval afterwards, but if they don't need it, they don't need it.
Right.
Chief is fine with BYOB. That doesn't require a license. That's private.
So then, so no action.
No action
No,
taken.
it's fine.
Motion to adjourn as the Board of License Commissioners.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Lebec?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have minutes from our May 8th meeting.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Lebec?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. And we'll move on to the town administrator's report. Mr. Rayner.
Good evening, Mr. President, Town Council, ladies and gentlemen. On May 5th, the Rhode Island Highway Safety Champion Award Ceremony was held at the Crown Plaza in Warwick. At this ceremony, the Portsmouth Police Department received the Law Enforcement Agency Award in recognition of our department's outstanding commitment to highway safety initiatives. Our department was the only law enforcement agency in the state recognized for this award during this year's ceremony. Several officers also received individual awards. Those included Sergeant Ryan Stinson, Detective James Tullier, Patrol Officer Ryan Chaika, Patrol Officer Daniel Serena, Major Michael Morris, and Colonel Brian Peters. He received the Highway Safety Leadership Award. The Horsley Witten Group has finished the Portsmouth Parks Recreation and Open Space Master Plan Report. It is posted on the Parks and Recreation webpage and will be presented to the Town Council at the July 10th council meeting. But just a reminder, we are accepting nominations for the annual Portsmouth Award. We do ask that nominations be accompanied by a narrative which justifies the recognition based on the person or organization's demonstrated excellence in professional and community leadership and significant contributions to the welfare and betterment of Portsmouth. Details are on the town website. Nominations will be accepted through May 31st. Another reminder, the Town Council workshop to hear public comment on the proposed South Coast Wind project will be held at 7 p.m. At the Portsmouth High School Auditorium this coming Thursday, May 25th. The Rhode Island Commerce Corporation, the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, and the National Telecommunications and Information Administration are holding a broadband summit at CCRI in Newport on Thursday, June 1st. The purpose is to bring together stakeholders in Rhode Island from the federal, state, local, and local governments, tribes, and industry to discuss coordination on broadband efforts as the state prepares to receive a significant broadband fund from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Relevant staff will be in attendance. Memorial Day weekend is coming up, and Town Hall will be closed for the federal holiday on Monday, June 29th. And then lastly, as you see in correspondence, the director of the Portsmouth Prevention
May 29th.
Coalition resigned.
May 29th.
What did I say? I meant May 29th. Thank you. I'd have been here all by myself. So, lastly, as you can see in the correspondence, the director of Portsmouth, the Portsmouth Prevention Coalition has resigned to accept a position with the Rhode Island Department of Health. The Newport County Prevention Coalition is covering Portsmouth and is working on a transition plan. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner.
Mr. President,
Yes.
back in the day, we used to acknowledge that if police officer or any employee of the town received the type of award mentioned in number 1, we would direct that a copy of that award be placed in the permanent jacket of that employee. Is that done?
That will be done. The police save everything for an annual award ceremony, which I believe is held in September.
Are you sure?
I'm absolutely
yeah.
positive.
Okay.
Okay. All right, moving on to old business. First item is the monthly finance report. Mr. Patrick.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. So as of the end of April, the town was 10 months or 83% through fiscal year 2023. Year-to-date general fund revenues were 80% of total budget, and year-to-date general fund expenditures were at 81% of total budget. Just for reference, this is roughly comparable to the same time period last fiscal year. Revenues were 81% and expenditures were 83% respectively. So we're looking forward to June 1st tax payments, and we're still seeing positive trends in building department revenue. Interest income and real estate transfer fees have certainly picked up for the spring season, which will be reflected in the next report. So that's a positive development, and we are strictly controlling discretionary spending as well. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Katzman.
Aye.
Ms. Abbott. Aye. Mr. Gleason.
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Levesque.
Aye.
Dr. Ryan.
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to new business. The first item, it's Learn 365 Rhode Island commitment to increasing out-of-school learning opportunities. And with us tonight, I believe we have, is it Jeremy? I'm going to get it wrong. Chipetta.
Anything close is great, guys.
All right. Are you alone? Is there anyone else presenting with you this evening?
So Cheyenne is online, but I think I'll be the only one
Okay.
talking, but if we need her to jump in, she is available.
All right.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Chipetta. I'm the executive director of a newly formed nonprofit that's philanthropically backed with the goal of supporting the governor's Learn 365 RI initiative. And specifically, I'm coming here tonight to inform you about the initiative, answer questions that you might have, and hopefully earn your support for this initiative in the form of a resolution to agree to sign on to a municipal compact, and then ultimately to schedule a signing with the governor and your team to really celebrate learning. There are some slides that have been shared and they're on the agenda linked in, and I'm happy to talk through them.
Okay.
So just, specifically, the governor, very boldly set out on any change initiative, set a goal. And so he set a goal of achieving best in class results for the students in Rhode Island by benchmarking against Massachusetts, which is, as we know, our neighbor to the north, or I guess to the east, and also, best in class in terms of one of the best school systems in the country. And then specifically, like the businessman that the governor is, and like the mayor that he is, and the governor that he is, he wants this goal to be accompanied by measurable outcomes and to hold ourselves accountable to achieving those outcomes. And the 4 measures that he's put in place for year 1 are improve reading scores, improve math scores, improve our daily attendance. And if we get kids to school, we expect those numbers to go up. And then to make sure every young person graduates with a plan. And the proxy for that is fill out the FAFSA form so that you have the option to go to college and to achieve those financial opportunities. There have been numerous studies that have been done over the years that really tie, so sort of the GDP, the gross domestic product, for people with higher education learning outcomes and not. And it is in the billions of dollars, the value that would be created if Rhode Island were to up our ante. As I shared with the town administrator a few weeks ago, we know Portsmouth is one of the highest performing school systems in the state of Rhode Island. And relative to some of the school systems in Massachusetts, there's still room to improve. There's still room to grow. And so we know this town is committed to education. The governor's really hoping to see 39 cities and towns all commit to saying learning is important. And in support of that, if we could go on to the next slide, he's looking to add meaningful learning hours, across all 39 cities and towns. And that might be, doing things that are through community centers. They might be through a municipal learning center. They might be through a Boys and Girls Club or another type of nonprofit in the community, or through the library or through the rec center or through the schools. It might be, making initiatives that go direct to families. And it might be partnering in with a local college or university. And, I know on the island, we've had, lots of really great conversations with Salve and with Roger Williams. So there's a lot of enthusiasm to really drive improvement in our learning outcomes, especially at this moment in time. As a career educator, I can say unequivocally that what we are seeing in our schools throughout the country coming out of the pandemic really requires more than just what the schools can do on their own. We need everyone in the community. We need, call it a collective impact model, call it a village model, call it an all hands model, whatever it is. The governor, I think, really sagely sees, there's a real opportunity to make, a moment out of this moment and bring everyone together to drive improvement. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is the opposite of an unfunded mandate. This is the governor coming forward, leveraging governor education emergency recovery funds, investing $4 million directly into municipal leaders across the state for these goals. So there will be an RFP that will come out through the Rhode Island Department of Ed. Cities and towns are the eligible applicants. And the governor would like to prioritize those communities that have put together a plan aligned to these goals, that have made a public commitment to this initiative, and then really get resources flowing into the community so that you can go after these goals. And there's going to be lots of different ways to do it that will vary by community based on knowing your needs. And I'm certainly here as a resource to support, the town manager, to support, if you partner in with the superintendent, if you want to work with, local nonprofit, I'm certainly available to help you do that. That's why I'm here. Next slide. The early part is actually really fun. This is, coming together and saying learning is important. The next part is actually really hard, which is actually executing on those 4 goals. But without sort of naming those goals and talking about them, that's key to culture change, and that's key to culture improvement around the importance of education. And at the time I wrote this slide, there were 6 communities that had signed on, and you can see them here. There have been 2 additional signings, so Smithfield and and my home of Pawtucket both signed on last week. And we have several more signings scheduled for the next couple of weeks. And we'd love Portsmouth to be one of those signings. You don't have to have a TV show like the Mayor of East Providence does to do a signing. And it could be as big or as small as your community wants to do. There are, the governor did a signing with the mayor of Providence over lunch with the superintendent, the commissioner, and a few other folks. In East Providence, the superintendent, assistant superintendent, some of the National Honor Society students, council people, there was a whole team really came together. So up to you in terms of how you might want to do that if you want to sign on. And then I think the last slide is just my contact information. Oh no, I'm sorry, the compact, just so you know what you're signing. And I apologize for the small font, but hopefully you pronounce and you can actually read this. But this is a series of platitudes that talk about the importance of education. And then, there are a number of bullets that really give you a bunch of suggestions on what you could do as a community. And many of these things may be things that you're already doing and you want to use the investment to amplify some of the things you're doing. Or maybe you see this as an opportunity to say, hey, we're really due to do a needs assessment. We're really due to, interview families, look at our community resources differently. And so we want to do that. Or you might be ready to go off to the races and say, hey, look, what we really need is to support an additional attendance officer to combat that chronic absenteeism. We're gonna partner with the school system and hire in for that. But there's a number of suggestions, some of which don't cost a penny and some of which require some investment. And as I said, the governor is putting his money where his mouth is. As a former mayor, he's not interested in unfunded mandates for anyone. And that's not what this is. And then I think I said, I jumped the gun a little bit. The final slide is just my contact information. I'm going to stop talking and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Chairman.
All right. Has this been run by the school committee, school department, superintendent?
Yes, that's, you jumped me. Yes, I've been working with Dr. Tom Kenworthy on this. He supports the idea. We've already got an idea for a plan and how we would execute this. So they support it. If you support it, they'll bring it to the town or the school committee tomorrow night. And we'll arrange the signing of this compact. And
That's a little bit of the horse before the cart or the cart before the horse. Usually something like this, as far as I'm concerned, should come from the school department.
This,
My concern really is, we faced a budget crunch this year. 4.4 million or 4 million or whatever it is, isn't gonna go that far when Providence is one of your signers. We could have used an extra $300,000 or $400,000 to take care of some of the kids coming out of COVID who don't really have their legs and their feet underneath them again. And now we come up with this type of concept with the governor. I'm a Democrat, I support the governor, but as far as I'm concerned, much too little, much too late. All right, I assume we're gonna support it because somewhere down the line, we're gonna get a portion of that $4 million. And I hate to tell you how much it's gonna be, but it probably isn't gonna be more than 40, 50,000. All right, and I'm troubled. I'm troubled with somebody coming to me after we've had significant cuts in education. We have had real problems guaranteeing a good education to our community and the people in our community and the people with most needs in our community. And I am sure Portsmouth is not alone. And now we have a brand spanking new program. You're the leader of it, but you are a messenger at this point, and I don't mean to take shots at you, but that's what I'm doing. All right. So, I'm fine. It looks shiny. Let's do it.
Thank you. That's excellent. I hear your concerns. I really do. And I respect you for raising them and sharing them. I do. And, what I can say is these federal dollars that have been allocated are available in this case through the governor's leadership as an RFP to cities and towns. This is not an RFP to nonprofits. This is not an RFP to
Can
to
I
school
interrupt you for a
committees.
second? We had to look at a school department budget that had almost all of the funds that were all of the programs that were grant funded under COVID. Okay, zeroed out for this coming year. So meaning that in September, there wouldn't be any money for these programs. Okay, and now essentially, we did not have the wherewithal under the cap essentially to fill it in. Okay, and now there is some other pocket of money that is designed for, I think programs like we're talking about, but sometime in the future. I mean, the future for these kids is right now.
One additional element of this initiative that I do want to share with you is, the governor recognizes that you have, a whole community to look after, not simply the students who are enrolled in the traditional public school system. And that's another reason why the governor is looking for city and town leadership to drive this particular initiative, recognizing you may have Catholic school, private school, career technical school, homeschool, students that live in town. This is an initiative that's really geared for every one of your residents with school age children.
My niece is homeschooling her son right now. If you want to send me 5-10 grand, I'll make sure he gets it.
I'll take note of that, sir.
Yes.
Tell Governor I said hi.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chipetta, thank you for coming and presenting this. I support it because I think it's a great initiative. I congratulate the governor for bringing forward a program like this to use this money this way. I'm deeply committed to supporting education. I first ran for office in 2004 because of cuts to the schools. So this has always been a topic of passion for me. To echo some of what Mr. Levesque has said, and recognizing you're a messenger, I have a message for, if you could bring back to Governor McKee, which is that Portsmouth's portion, the Portsmouth state funding to schools, our portion under the funding formula, has been cut every year for the last 10, 12 years. Looking at the school committee chair. So while this fund is $4 million, we have lost over $2 million in funding over that period. That's how much less we are getting today than we were getting once upon a time. And programs like this are great, but they aren't for annual operational costs. We have lost program content in our schools because we cannot pass a budget beyond a cap, either by law or because the citizens of the town would revolt. But we're getting among, if not the least, among the least amount of money per student of any municipality in the state. And that's something that I hope you bring back to the governor to say that somehow, whether it's through the funding formula or something else, that needs to be fixed because we can't keep getting less and less every year while the state and Department of Education keeps expecting the same level of service. And if the goal is to perform as well as our sister municipalities in Massachusetts, I would love to have the same percentage of money go funding the school department in Portsmouth as the state of Massachusetts provides to its municipalities. That's my message for the governor.
I will relay. Thank you.
Okay, any further comments from David?
I wasn't gonna say anything, but I agree with my colleagues. What we need is increased state aid for funding to fund our core programs. I am very supportive of summer school and summer camps and year-round learning opportunities. But I'll be frank, this feels more like a photo op gimmick than anything else. I think if we really see some dollars behind supporting our school systems and 365-day a year programming, I'm all for it. I just don't see the point in having some ceremony to sign this compact frankly. So thank you.
Mr. Gleason.
I'm going to change the subject a little bit. I think you will see that all of us are in support of our school system and continuing to improve it in any way we can. My question is more along the lines of what do you expect to receive back when you go out to bid? What exactly are you bidding for? What is your target? I mean, how is this? What are you going to get as receivables based on this bid package? And
Sure. So the details will be defined by the Department of Ed through an RFP process. And in that will be, you know, the rules of engagement. What I expect to see in terms of a successful application will be a municipally led initiative in partnership with one or more departments of the town or the school department or nonprofits in the community, really very specifically and actionably going after one or more of those 4 goals that have been defined. A budget plan, and in the RFP, there will be some clear communication on what the size and scope of your award may be. I'm hearing conversations, and you can't hold me to this because the RFP is not finalized, but I'm hearing conversations that a floor of about $50,000 is being proposed, with a ceiling of $400,000 or $500,000, so that, you know, really every community would get at least something reasonable and sizable, and no one community would eat up the entire pot of money. So that's what I expect to see. I think we're going to see really creative and different proposals coming through. You know, the needs of Central Falls are dramatically different than the needs of Portsmouth, than the needs of East Providence or you know, Coventry, right? So every community is going to be different. So some might go after a tutoring initiative and say, hey, we want to do a 1-year tutoring initiative, in partnership with the library. Another community might say, hey, we've got a bunch of kids that already go to the Boys and Girls Club. We want to infuse academic learning into the Boys and Girls Club, and that's going to be our big bet. Others may say, I think I referenced this earlier, we're gonna hire a counselor or social worker to go door knocking to get kids back into school and go all in on that strategy. I'm really excited to see what the state comes up with in terms of really creative ideas across the board. I don't know if that answered your question at all, but I hope it gives you a flavor of what we're.
Clear enough for now. Thank you.
Chairman, quick question. So this is a grant, or is there a match component from the town? Is that?
There's not. This is
Okay.
a grant initiative. It's going to be a pretty quick turnaround. We've been trying, for the last several weeks to, get the word out. We've been meeting with, the League of Cities and Towns, meeting with town managers, meeting with, mayors, so that people are primed. I believe June 1st is the target date for the RFP, hopefully even earlier. And then probably a 30-day turnaround. So, but I know your town manager is going to be ready for it because of the conversations we've had and what he already expressed. And I'm certainly available to come in and meet with the team and try to support the application as best as I can. That's my purpose.
Thank you. Mr. Levesque?
Yeah, one last thing. I recalled it and then I looked it up. So when the governor was mayor, he was an architect behind what they called the mayoral academies, which, if I'm not mistaken, were charters. I never believed in charters when I was in the legislature. And while I would love to see the Rainer Raiders or something, an administrator academy, that'd be cool, wouldn't it? Your picture all over the place?
I'll send them to the Naval
No.
Academy.
I'm very uncomfortable with that. I'm uncomfortable with an educational direction that actually removes it from the people who are actually our specialists. And I realize the Department of Education is our specialist, but don't tell people in Central Falls and Providence that. And having a direction and having a person who really kind of led that charge. We have very good public education in the town of Portsmouth, and I believe the support should be for that.
Thank you, Mr. Levin. Mr. Hamilton?
Thank you, Mr. President. So Jeremy and Cheyenne, you've heard a few major concerns that this council has in terms of funding in general of our school systems and school, well, across the state. My concern with this program is it's $4.4 million, which in terms of education is a drop in the bucket. It's 10% of our yearly budget. What happens next year? We start up a program, it's going well, oops, we're out of money. I can tell you what happens here. The school committee comes back and says, hey, this program's working great, we need more money. You've mentioned unfunded mandates 14 times or so in your speech, and that this is not an unfunded mandate, but my concern is that it becomes an unfunded mandate. What's the backstop in the future once this $4.4 million, which if each city and town does sign up, it's about $112,000 per city and town. What happens next year at this time? We have a program that's up and running with one of our, either our school system or a local community organization, and then we're forced to stop it because there's no more money. Is the governor committed to utilizing more funds either in the operating budget of the state or more of the COVID relief money that may or may not be available depending on what's happening in Washington, D.C. this afternoon? I know you say it's not an unfunded mandate, but it's kind of starting to smell like an unfunded mandate in the future.
Yeah, I'm not sure, you know, if I'm in the right place to prognosticate about what I think will happen. But what I do know is that, you know, the governor is fully committed to this initiative. The governor's budgets, I am confident, will continue to reflect that. To that end, even in this current budget, separate from the conversation we're having tonight and the gear funds that he's allocating in this initiative, in his budget is an additional $4 million that he has proposed for out-of-school time learning opportunities. And so if that actually makes it all the way through the General Assembly, there very well could be, you know, even more funds for this. And I would expect, based on the many conversations I've had with the governor, that he intends to continue to use both his bully pulpit and his budget authority in terms of, you know, proposing a budget, and using his office to try to influence that successfully. That said, as everyone here knows, you know, the General Assembly, you know, plays a really critical role in ultimately approving the budget. And I for one am not in a position to predict, you know, tomorrow, let alone a year from now.
Understood. It was the funding comment was, I guess, more directed at Cheyenne, who's in the background taking notes to bring back to the governor.
Yes, sir. And I do want to reiterate in our conversations that the governor is committed to funding this proposal. And he's made comments to other municipal leaders about that. So we will look for our next budget to include funding.
Thank you. And then other programs and initiatives up at the State House are 100% universal free lunch program, which I think would help us out in terms of kids being able to eat on a regular basis, which would be great. There's also for Cheyenne, there's a House Bill 6222 that restores general revenue sharing. That would be a help to the municipalities that the governor could look into. That would be great as well.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
Nope.
We do not.
Okay. Will there be a motion?
I'll make a motion that we, you know, sign on to a municipal compact, provided it doesn't cost the town any money.
Exactly.
And future revenues are set aside, future funding is set aside by the governor and the General Assembly to continue programs. So there's not a one and done situation.
I have faith that our superintendent and our school committee will be able to find use for any funds, even temporary ones. So I will second this motion.
Okay. Any further comment?
And I just want to speak briefly to, I agree. But the thing is, I disagree kind of with your argument. Sometimes they have put forward money and the program really was sufficient and good, and we wouldn't have done it on our own initiative. And then you got to take the bull by the horns and say, all right, it's working. We're keeping kids in school. We're feeding them. We're doing this. We'll take care of it. Now, I don't disagree with you. It's kind of unfair to do it that way. But if the program works, the program works. So I will support. Tell the governor I said, I will support. It's an I. You'll hear me say I in a second.
Okay. We have, did you?
No, we're
Speechless.
I really don't think I see the point of us voting on this, but I don't want to prevent our school committee from competing for funds that could potentially help them. And so I will also vote aye, but it, you know, that $4 million, like you said, is a drop in the bucket. And I'd rather see state aid for our schools among, you know, various different initiatives. But voting against this doesn't help us either. So
The two are not mutually exclusive, so
here we are.
here we are.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
I,
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you all. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Cheyenne.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Moving on to our next item, new business number 2. It's request permission to hold an Island Park walk, bike, and dog party on Saturday, September 9th from 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Park Ave from Mason Ave to Ivy Ave to benefit the Island Park Preservation Society. Mr. Fikevich.
Mr. President, council members, audience. I'm an advocate for Island Park. I'm an advocate for Park Avenue. We have a wonderful part of Portsmouth in Island Park. A few weeks ago, I was contacted and I was told that there is a grant available to the town. I believe it's in the $4,000 range for us to hold a bike walk. And we all drive down Park Avenue. We all know how many cars are parked there and how many cars drive Park Avenue. It's kind of nice to consider. We're going to close it off for 3 hours. We met with the chief of police and Sergeant McDonald. We're working out the details, but I understood that this has a timestamp on it for us to come in front of you, give you this pitch, and then let Mr. Rayner do what he has to do with respect to getting the grant. The grant money will pay for the police officers that we will have there. It's a little bit of a logistics, you know, and I've been starting to, I drive down Park Avenue and I'm counting cars. Okay, it's going to be a phobia of mine now, but I'll figure out how many cars, and we're making arrangements to where the cars that would normally park on Park Avenue will be able to park on that particular 3 hours that day. I understand that Barry Newman is possibly on the Zoom. Barry is back, my bike Newport. They did had a similar opportunity on Middle Road. I wasn't present, but I understand it was a pretty good success. And Bike Newport is going to bring this to Island Park. And something else I want to say, I'd love to see a lot of kids on bicycles on September 9th instead of home playing on their computer. And it's only 3 hours. The Island Park businesses, Island Park Preservation Society, Mr. McFarland and other businesses. I have had some conversations with Mike Grazianos. Grazianos is awesome. Saturday morning is their big day, their morning, but we're working out the details on that as well. Thank you. Did I do okay?
Great job, Mr. President. Sorry for the time crunch. Portsmouth has been approved for the grant, but it needs to be approved and signed tomorrow. So what we're asking for is your approval. I can go ahead and sign the grant application. We can work out the details. We have plenty of time to work out the details. We don't have to sign the grant, and there's no cost to the town other than the logistics that'll have to be worked on.
I move that we approve. And,
Second.
you're right. We had close to 450 people at the Middle Road
Fun.
event, and it was amazing.
Yeah, right. And Park Avenue is large enough. We got 4 lanes. It's large enough for bicycles, kids.
And it's got a water view.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. We love Park Avenue.
tell them not to beat their horn when they go by my house, okay? I'll still be asleep.
What's your address?
Mr. Vikavich, do we have to get DOT permission as well?
Excuse me?
Do we need DOT's permission for
I
parking?
believe that's part of the application
Right,
process.
okay.
And something else, we're gonna ask them to suspend the no parking on Boyd's Lane that particular day, because that's a lot of parking on Boyd's Lane, both up and down, so. And I would recommend if you want to hear anything about Bike Newport, Barry might be on the Zoom. Is Barry Freeman on the Zoom? Okay, maybe could I introduce Barry Newman from Bike Newport and let her give you her, Barry Freeman, Barry Newman.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, Barry Freeman from Bike Newport. Had the pleasure of working on several open road events on Middle Road. Danielle Abbott, Councilors Danielle Abbott, and then Councilor Linda Fusen, as State Senator, helped to coordinate them. Bike Newport was very, very happy to be part of making this happen. We refer to it as an open road event because it's open to people biking and walking, rolling and strolling. I heard you included dogs in the description. It's all of the above. It's not a race or a ride. It's an open road that people enjoy moving about on. Absolutely, one of the highlights of it is kids riding without their parents' concern for their safety from cars. It's car-free and stress-free. It's a short period of time, and it's always in some celebrated place in Newport. We've done it for several years on Ocean Avenue, most iconic coastal road on Quinnic Island, and people are able to experience it without concern for cars. And Middle Road, we call the farm to farm ride, has been just an exceptionally fun event. And the way that we do it, I think that a large part of the success comes from early communication with the residents and businesses in the area. So we communicate well in advance. We make ourselves available for questions. The police are deeply involved in helping us to figure out where people need to come and go, what kind of alternate routes might be recommended. It is a very short period of time, just 3 hours. And for the most part, the residents in the area just decide to participate and not to need their car. I can tell you that in all of the years in both of those locations, which now have a little bit of a track record, we've never had anyone use the phone number to get out during the time, which is made available. No one is locked in. If somebody needs to get out, they're able to do that. And we've never had anyone make use of it on any of these days. Certainly if there's an emergency situation, police are there. We have, in both of these cases, Ocean Avenue and Middle Road, we have volunteers posted at all of the intersections and sawhorses up, and it's very positive and friendly and happy. And even on Ocean Avenue, the residents there come out and participate and say they really look forward to it. They love it. Just don't do it every weekend, is the quote that I hear at most of the locations. So every open road event is unique. We haven't done Park Avenue yet. We have some thinking to do. We have some conversations to have with the residents and the businesses and the police department. I think that if you guys give us the green light, we'll start to work through those details. What ends up happening is that it's promoted well, it's communicated well, the access is celebrated and enjoyed. And in the course of it, we capture and manage, the enthusiasm into future progress for biking and pedestrian accommodation. So I highly encourage, I promise that Bike Newport will be involved. We'll bring our experience to the event. And there's already a fair bit of experience in Portsmouth from the farm to farm ride.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. Okay.
Just one quick question. Sure. We're gonna close from the north side of Mason, which would be and north out to Ivy, leaving people be able to get in Mason and wiggle their way all the way back to Riverside if they need to.
Yes, it's Mason over there. Ivy will take care of Seaconnet behind locals. The only one that I'm having the issue with right now is Fountain Ave. That's the one that's kind of like so, but I know a bunch of people there and.
But the majority of the 600 plus houses will be able to get in and out of their house if they want to.
We took the tax assessors, they gave us the maps and we tried to put it all in one piece so that we could show the route. But we're gonna fine tune it and I'm sure we'll keep you guys posted.
It's just so people understand it. They're not trapped. They can-
Oh, yes. Oh,
Right,
no,
that's the
no.
big thing.
Yeah, no, that would be an issue. No.
No, you won't.
No, I'm only surprised, if I may, Mr. President,
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
surprised you introduced yourself as an advocate for Island Park, because I thought you were an advocate for all of Portsmouth.
Okay, look, hold it. OJ 711 is fun. Okay, so, yeah, but Island Park is a significant area of this town and it's got a history. And by the way, history, May 29th, 1790, which is Monday. Okay, 66 legislators got together at the Baptist Church in Newport and they voted 12 times. 12 times. 33 said they wanted to be the state of Rhode Island. 33 said, no, we want our own. The 13th vote made us the 13th state, 1790 this Monday. Happy, you know, I mean, yeah, no, I love the history of the state and, you know, thank you. I appreciate the council's consideration and vote. And Mr. Rayner and I can coordinate and get this done.
Try to do this in one vote.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Mr. Capson.
Aye.
Ms. Abbott.
Aye.
Mr. Gleason.
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Levesque.
Aye.
Dr. Ryan.
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Piquet. All right, moving on. Next item, new business number 3. It's a request to authorize a grant for a 10-year easement for a new trail extension to the Sconic Greenway Trail. It's for the Aquinic Land Trust. Is it Tom Hockaday or?
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the town council. I'm actually Alex Schuman, the Land Trust Conservation Director. Sort of hopefully doing part A of this presentation, and then Tom Hockaday, our board chair, has a few comments as well, if that's okay. Also here is our former executive director, Chuck Allett, who I know everyone knows, who's consulting with the Land Trust and is available to help with any questions. I do have a few slides, if possible, to put up. So what we are proposing to the council is a 10-year easement over a portion of the perimeter of Glen Farm Stables. This easement would allow for a free to the public trail to be built and for ALT to manage and maintain that trail.
Can you just give us a second to
Yeah.
catch up video? For those participating and helps them. Okay.
Great. So next slide on that. Great. So if you look at this map here, basically we would be seeking an easement over that blue line, which would connect the trailhead on Linden Lane at the Sconic Greenway Trail to a parcel to the north that we call Glen Pasture, which the Land Trust is just about to open a half-mile loop trail there. And so this would be a connector piece in total that would add with Glen Pasture an additional mile to the north of the current Sconic Greenway Trail. Next slide, please. So why do we think this is important? We've seen a lot of trail use on our trails, over 50 to 60,000 visits on average per year. Since 2020, we have trail counters up that do an infrared count. So those numbers we feel are pretty accurate. That's across our 13 miles. We have opened recently, as the council, I'm sure is aware, the Spruce Acres property. And thank you. Portsmouth was a great partner in that project. And Little Creek Preserve over on Brayman's Lane. Those are 2 new trail projects within the last 5 years that have really gotten a lot of great use by the community. Our current rules and regulations, which is what we would propose to continue on this connector piece, if granted, are hiking, walking, dog walking with leashes and just no motorized vehicles, equestrian use is permitted. We don't allow bikes just because of the horse use. It creates a bit of a conflict in terms of safety purposes, but otherwise dawn to dusk and completely free to the public. As you're aware, we have partnered with Portsmouth in the past, and I think very successfully. We have a short trail easement on the edge of the Field Newport Polo leases, as well as trail rights around the 3S property. Next slide, please. And we really feel that based on what we see, our trails serve a lot of different types of users in Portsmouth. We have walkers, we have runners, we have daily dog walkers, we have birders who go early. Sports teams, cross-country teams use the trails. Local schools use the trails. So we get a lot of different types of users. There's study after study showing the importance of open space and recreational use for our mental health as well as physical health. And we also feel, in addition to serving Portsmouth residents, it helps bring people to Portsmouth who like to go hiking and maybe stay in town for lunch after and that sort of thing as well. Next slide, please. So just to give brief background and the specifics. So this is an aerial shot of the Glen Pasture property just north of Glen Farm Stables. A couple of years ago, we were able to work with Steve Johnson, who's here, and the Spitalniks to put a conservation easement on this piece and protect it at a generous bargain sale price. As part of that agreement, we have trail rights around that perimeter. And actually, we were just out there today kind of finalizing some of the signage and hope to have a soft opening on that piece in the next week or so. Next slide, please. So you can see here, the Glen Farm Stables piece is really just a connector trail between those two pieces. Next slide. And just some of the specifics. So 10 feet wide is typically our standard. So that's what we are proposing here. The terms of the proposed easement would just be to allow ALT to construct and maintain and manage the trail. Construction in this case would be basic signage, maybe putting down some crushed stone permeable material on muddy spots. And the bigger piece is just building a bridge over a stream segment down there. And that would be entirely at ALT's cost, as would the future maintenance. So this is, for a trail like this, would be mowing, hedge trimming vegetation and just taking calls, questions from the community as well, which I feel, we have a lot of experience doing with all of our other trail systems. Next slide. So thank you for your consideration. We believe that this would be a great project for Portsmouth residents. It would be at no cost to the town other than some work negotiating the trail easement. And we would be seeking for approval for the town and ALT staff, the town staff and ALT to negotiate a draft easement that would then go back to the council for approval or modification. And again, it would just be a great way to continue the partnership on open space and recreation that we've had in the past. And I'm going to hand it over to Tom and then can take any questions if that's okay.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, members of the council. My name is Tom Hockaday, and I have the privilege of being the chair of the Quinnic Land Trust, but also I'm here as a citizen, as a resident of Portsmouth. I live right around the corner from this proposed trail extension. I'm on those trails on a daily basis. I see the enthusiasm and the support that the community members have from that. And I'm here just as someone who has an opportunity to see that the people that use these trails are all walks of life, all ages. There's children, weekends, there's strollers with families. People are happy with their dogs. And I think that this opportunity to partner for the Land Trust to partner with Portsmouth, as we have done so many years in the past, and we are so grateful for that opportunity that you have provided us. This is just another opportunity to provide more open space. I've been a community activist, and particularly in open space and parks and preserving land and conservation all of my adult life. I actually began my work doing this when I was in high school in Texas so many years ago. But this is something that I think is very beneficial for not only just the neighborhood I live in, but this community and for generations to come. It's a really great, in many sense, a win-win for the community, for the council, for the city, and for Land Trust and all those that want to be on the land. So we appreciate, on behalf of the Land Trust, your support and work with us over the past years. Particularly, I was very involved in the Spruce Acres project, and that was your work with that was tremendously helpful. And we look forward and hope you will be supportive of this effort as we try to connect the trails with this extension. Thank you.
So it was clear. It was clear without you saying anything that you were from very much southwest.
Get rid of it.
President?
Sure.
I support for the proposal. My concern was that for learning more. I don't think a Quidnick Land Trust's typical conservation easement is appropriate for the Glen. I think the Glen should remain solely owned by the people of Portsmouth. And I wouldn't want to see another entity encroach on the people's rights to that property. But this is not that. This is a different proposal that is essentially an easement to allow the construction and maintenance of the trail with a time frame of 10 years. And so with that, I support it.
Thank you, Mr. Capson.
I had spoken to Mr. Allett, who I had known since '86. Can you believe it? 1986. Not 18. And I suggested that we might refer this to Parks and Recreation. But I don't know that that's entirely necessary. I think I would like in the future to make sure that our Recreation Director and our Parks and Recreation Committee have full participation in something like this. But it is, in my mind anyway, a relatively small ask. So unless somebody speaks to the contrary, I will be supporting going forward with it tonight and asking that the appropriate easement be drawn.
Thank you, Mr. Levesque. Questions, comments?
Is that a motion?
I would so move.
I would second.
Just a question. Mr. Rayner, have we ever gotten any complaints from any citizen of Portsmouth about any of the trails that are maintained by the Quidnick Island Land Trust?
Not to me, no.
Well, that's just un-American. Come on, you know, one of your rebel people.
got a
should be
whole
down
drawer
there
of others,
complaining about
you can
something.
Couple quick things.
Yeah.
I've gone back and forth with Mr. Allett on this, and one of the things that was discussed when we changed the charter about granting easements and giving away pieces of property, and your predecessor actually coined a phrase of death by 1,000 paper cuts, is the biggest key here for people to take away is we're not giving up any property rights to the Glen or any of their piece thereof. It's just to allow the land trust the ability to construct the trail through there. So my two questions are, A, have we discussed this or have you discussed this with our vendor who runs the stables? And specifically because we're gonna go right up and around them, and does this interfere on any of their operations?
Yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned that. We have discussed with Ann and she's supportive, and even walked the site with her to make sure she was okay with the route. She thought it was great and also helpful for her business because they could use it as well.
Yeah, great. And I do have a complaint about the Greenway trails. Way too many ticks. Can you get rid of some of those, please? Good Lord. Saw some poor woman put up on Facebook with a white dog and she had like 150 ticks on it from one walk.
Yeah, that is our number one complaint.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. No, I think this is a win-win for the town. It's a great opportunity to partner with a land trust and extend our trail network. And you know, the best part of this is it's not costing the town anything. So thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you all. Okay. Let's move on to new business number 4. It's a request resolution in support of legislation that would raise the minimum reimbursement for school construction projects from 35% to 40% and extend the eligibility date for the computation of school housing aid from December 2023 to June 2024.
Mr. President, so moved.
Second. Okay.
All right, I'm done.
Good work.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I will apologize. I forgot about that one when Cheyenne was still online. You should have just waved or something.
Yeah. No, we passed this resolution at our last meeting. I think it's a no-brainer for Portsmouth. We're not expecting to use the extension for completion. But at a minimum, any future housing aid would be at 40% versus 30. And as the bill is currently written, we think it would apply to our bond projects, which would be incredibly helpful. So
Hey, if it's a no-brainer, you came to the right place.
So we have, just a quick question, is the bill number correct?
there are two, there's I don't know what you have in backup, but it should be, if you're looking at ours, it's a House and a Senate bill,
House, is it?
5-7, I think, something like that.
5-7. That's what I'm looking up. The only 57 I'm getting is the resolution. Senate.
We didn't have anything.
5792 is what the PDF has.
5792, and I think it's 5074, but I could be wrong on, there's some,
454.
sorry.
Senate.
Yeah.
Get those. Just want to make sure that.
Believe it or not,
You corrected the PDF.
Good.
the Senate gets 0 to 5,000 and the House gets 5,000 to 10. Give you an idea how many bills they are ready to have in that legislature.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those
By the
in
way,
favor?
that was rude of you.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye, motion passes 7-0. Okay, we are moving on. Next item's number 6. It's a request to advertise for a public hearing for a proposed addition to chapter 250 motor vehicle and traffic.
Did you just skip?
No,
over?
It's
No.
5, I think.
Back up.
I'm sorry. Sorry. All right, number 5. Moving on.
I'm wanting to give you all this authority and
I
you're
know.
messing up.
See, that's why I don't, gotta go baby steps. Number 5, request resolution in opposition of bill. Senate 455 and House 5656 relating to agriculture and forestry. Tree warden introduced on behalf of Rhode Island Energy.
Move to approve.
Second.
May I just say a couple of things before we get to that point?
Yeah, and Scott came all the way here.
I know.
Well, here's the problem I have. The bill is, both bills, although the Senate number is wrong, both bills are fairly comprehensive. What is it right now that happens when National Grid or Rhode Island Energy wants to clear out an area around their transformers or their poles? What do? Do they contact you? Do they contact you?
So I could speak a little bit to that. So right now, Rhode Island is not a right to trim state. They follow a permissioning process. So they will go out to individual property owners, put cards on their doors, seeking permission to come onto their property, review what they would like done. When it comes to each city and town, you brought the issue of easement, and it's really sort of property rights for our public trees that we have installed and maintained. So right now, they basically need approval, or they fall under the requirements that a tree warden can regulate how they prune, make sure that they meet current standards. This would, in its place, establish a statewide management plan and specifications that would be solely governed by the PUC. So they would be eliminating the permission, the involvement of each city and town, and influencing how their public trees, or I think a little bit more shockingly, that anyone could come onto their private, and this doesn't necessarily, this is all vegetation management. So they could potentially, if you look at the findings in this, as far as sort of eliminating all storm outages, well, that's not going to happen through cutting 2 more feet. They'd literally have to remove all the trees on our streets, backyards, near power lines to more closely resemble transmission lines. So there'd be no trees within the corridor. So I think it would be a mistake to rest all this power with the PUC. It's not an area of expertise that they currently have. Individual DPW departments and tree wardens across the state have really been a resource to the power company in identifying hazards, helping mitigate hazards, being the eyes and ears for the power company. This really would take each individual city and town out of the equation, and they would be putting a static management plan that they would then have the discretion. Obviously, this specifications and management plan haven't yet been developed, but they want to give the authority at the front end and then leave it to the PUC to accept this management plan. And at no
The
point,
indication here is that there will be a notification process for municipalities, state agencies and or private owners that may be impacted by any vegetation management activity. Process shall provide notification to affected parties at least 30 days in advance, any scheduled vegetation management activity, and allow for exclusions to preserve public safety and respond. I mean, to me, it just seems like the public utilities are the people who control the utilities in this state. And it seems to me that if you're gonna have them responding to a number of different agencies in each one of the 39 cities and towns on a regular basis without any sort of overlay is not a good idea.
well, I just respectfully disagree, because the reality is, and I've asked the person who's in charge of vegetation management, can you give one example, just one single example of a community obstructing the safe delivery of electricity? Is there a single tree warden that has stopped the utility company from doing the right thing? If anything, quite often it's the DPW and the tree warden that are pushing them to come back and get greater clearance to address dangerous trees. So I think, again, it's basically replacing a permission process with a notification process. And again, these all to be developed. So basically, if you receive some type of notification, we don't know what that could be. It could be you receive a notification with your bill, you receive a notification, and then if you don't object within a certain amount of time, then
What if
you're
you
out of
ignore
the thing.
the postcard they put in your door?
Right. So what is, well, they have basically a follow-up process. What has been recommended by our house, local house, is that instead we take one step back. Instead of completely throwing out the current system, that we look at collectively about how to solve the problem. There's a very small number of individual private residents that are not being reasonable. There is alternatives. Instead of taking everyone's rights away and just saying, we're going to do what we want unless you object, come up with an alternative such as an arbitration process. So if there is a property owner that's being unreasonable, we would have specifications, we would have what would be reasonable. And then there would be a process to ensure that there's a check and balance on the utility company to ensure that they're basically not saying, this plan says we have the right to do that. I'm afraid your tree is going to have to come down.
I mean, my feeling is that, quite frankly, they would not have put the legislation in if they did not have some block that they were dealing with, or they wanted to, in fact, have some sort of formalized way of doing their business. And that this plan is fairly comprehensive. I don't, I mean, the idea to pull it out and then have everyone sit around the table, I won't fight you on it. But it seems to me that we need something like this so that all of those things that potentially could be fire hazards are dealt with on a rational, reasonable basis without people going hat in hand to each household.
Sure. As way of background, I've been working in this industry for 39 years, worked on line trimming crews. I've actually worked as a utility arborist for New England Power, supervising all of the crews from Newburyport to Revere. So I am very much aware of the needs of it. I can tell you that this is not going to result in the findings. This really is about the new owner of the utility company is able to do business in a certain way, where they're coming from in Pennsylvania. They want to take their mode of operation and apply it to a New England state that traditionally values private property rights and allowing an individual property owner to have a considerable say on the type of trimming that happens or removal. People are very possessive of their trees. So to come into someone's yard and tell them based on a specification, your tree has to come down. And then if you don't follow it through a notification process. I think individual property owners want to be able to go to their city councilor, to their city manager, to their DPW director, and have a say on what's going to happen on their yard and not rely
I
on the
think you
PUC.
Describe something that would be a morass. However, I am very jealous of trees on other people's property. I am very jealous every time they drive down East Main Road by the church, by St. Mary's, and clip every tree there, okay, to make it look like it's a Beazer cut. Nonetheless, I mean, I will support it. Dr. Ryan, I know you were gonna propose it, so I will support it. But I'd like to see this get done because I think it's wise to have a system in place. Thank you, and I apologize.
We have a motion in a second.
Yes. we do.
Any further questions, comments?
I was gonna say something real quick. I mean, I just think that the PUC is already overburdened with things, and this is, I'll put it less diplomatically than what Scott just said. This is Rhode Island Energy, Pennsylvania Light and Power, trying to circumvent people being able to make a decision on their own property, to make their life easier, develop a statewide plan that they can utilize in any community. And we're different than Providence, than, heck, we're different than Foster. They got a lot more trees, but we're different than Foster. We need to have the local control. PUC has shown in the past that they don't recognize the sovereignty of the towns. Let's look at Old Mill Lane that we have sitting on our desk. So I don't think I would want to give any more power to the PUC.
And basically, you're talking about the balkanization of Rhode Island. So Portsmouth has its rule, Middletown has its rule, every other community. We are a small state. And you shouldn't really have 39 different cities, rules for everything. And yeah, I know the electric company is the enemy, but I only worry when my TV doesn't work. And that's the only time I get mad at them.
I don't think there's different rules. I think every city and town goes through the same process. Rhode Island Energy is trying to circumvent the process that's currently in place to make their life easier.
Small state, one system. That would make sense, wouldn't it?
No, because we're all different.
Because we're the damn town of Portsmouth and we
No.
can't hear bird. All right.
Absolutely.
There we go.
We were here before Foster.
Where's the guy from Texas? We're gonna secede.
All right.
I just wanted to say, thank you, Mr. Wheeler. I agree with you entirely. I don't think I would want the PUC or the utility companies dictating what we do with our trees. I think what we need is you and our DPW prioritizing, you know, the beauty and health and well-being of our community, and that's certainly not their priority. So I think it's important to have a process that involves different points of view and people with different goals and objectives so that we can ensure the best outcome for our community. So I
Do we have a process?
strongly
in town?
support this. Thank you.
Do we have a process? I mean, an actual process in town that the electric company can come and say, here's what you need to do. We do?
They're doing it right now. They're going door to door right now and identifying with property owners, trees that, or work that needs to be done on their power lines. If there's a tree on their property, they're doing it right now. So I know a couple more folks have comments. I think Len had a comment.
Yeah, just really quickly, first, thank you, Mr. Wheeler, and weighing in on this topic. When our town tree warden or any volunteers, you know, who commit their time and energy to particular issues in town, come with specific information and knowledge that they have built up over time, I respect that and usually. Well, also, I will point out that both the House and the Senate have the committees hearing these matters have already voted to hold these items for further study. So I don't think they're going anywhere anyway, which so that's our backstop.
That's not necessarily true.
Well, they can always come.
Yeah.
be brought
For
back
somebody who was up there 2 weeks ago, the first vote they took with all the bills that were in front of them was to hold them all for further study.
Right.
That's just their. Some of them have come out and been voted on.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of pay attention. Their default is, we're gonna hold all the bills for further study. We're not gonna
That's
vote
right.
on any tonight, which gives the
So that-
able for people to get up and leave.
So that leadership can pick and choose which bills will be.
Well,
Right.
I mean,
So
the
fair
thing
enough,
is yes
I
and
will
no, but the
just
other
say-
thing is.
All right, hold on, one at a time.
Tax.
Hold on, one at a time.
Let me just wrap up my comments in saying, I think for some things, it is important to have one rule statewide. I'll pick on our doctor here and say medical licensure. Portsmouth shouldn't have its own rules for who could be a doctor.
Hey, wait a second.
But for something like this, where the nature of our community and our trees is very different from, any given neighboring community, I think it's appropriate that we have that municipalities should have autonomy on things that make sense, and this is one of them from as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
I just wanted to point out, the reason why I read this and immediately was in agreement. These proposals fix a problem that don't exist. So if we really had unwise hazardous management of our local vegetation, where are the power lines coming down with every storm? Where are the disasters that are constantly occurring, which this mitigates? They don't happen. So our tree warden and our tree commission are intimately familiar with the trees in our town. They're also very familiar with where the power lines run. And they would be the first ones to sound, well, they and Brian actually would be the first ones to sound an alarm if there was some unsafe situation going on. So, to ignore local officials who have an intimate knowledge of our town to fix a problem that right now is not occurring doesn't seem to make any sense to me, which is why I think it's reasonable to oppose these two bills.
Can I just say a couple of things? One, I do believe that all of the utility bills are being placed on hold, and they may all come ramping out at one time, and this may be one of them. Mr. Wheeler, actually, I had that the warden was Mr. Fitzgerald. Okay, you're not the warden. The tree commission, okay. How many times do you go walking around to check all the utility lines to make sure that they're all okay? Well, I mean, the thing is, please, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, but here's the thing. We don't have a professional group out there looking over the easements on all of the things. Now, how can this be a problem? Well, I don't know. Where do all the fires start in California? I mean, some of them are campsites, some of them are electric companies that had something go wrong. Had a transformer blow and all the weeds and everything around it go up in flames. So, I mean, fine, I already committed to voting for it. But I'm just telling you that I do think this is a problem. I do think you should deal with it systemically, and let's do it.
I would just suggest that certainly some of you may know that I'm the park superintendent for Newport, and I've been tree ward, it'll be 29 years in July, and I work extremely closely with Brian. I can tell you, Brian has intimate knowledge about just about every single street in town, every, catch basin. And certainly if someone comes to me and references a street, I can think of what trees are on it and what's a potential hazard. And if I get a call in the middle of the night about it's a problem in a particular location, I can probably picture that tree. There's a total of 2 vegetation management specialists for all of Rhode Island Energy for the whole state. Bill is proposed to create 1 person from the PUC. If the tree wardens, if the DPW directors are cut out of the process and it's just left to the utilities, they're losing a resource. Because I've asked the head of vegetation management, have you ever had a tree warden be obstructionist? And the answer is no. So why would we remove the authority of the tree warden if there's never a single case of a single tree warden ever being obstructionist? So again, this is a bill in search of a problem. They're trying to match the regulatory atmosphere in Pennsylvania, and I don't think it fits Rhode Island. Or it certainly doesn't match any of the other surrounding New England communities as far as what authority the utility has.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Mr. Roberts?
Peter Roberts, 80 Mount Avenue. In 1970, I joined the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers out of Boston, 104, which is outside electricians, not inside. So we did all the power stuff. And there's one thing I've known ever since then is when you have trees near wires, they come down on the wires and you got to pay a bill. Because all the time they come out to fix all these wires costs billions of dollars. Now, I was also with Local 70 in DC and worked at the airports. And at Baltimore Washington International Airport, a hurricane came through Maryland. It took us a week to clean up all the trees that broke down all the lines. And trees should not be near power lines. Now, they're mainly there because tree lovers, but they cost us so much. The idea everything's as high as it is because how much money goes to fixing the lines? If nothing comes down on them, you don't have to fix the lines. Even on ice storms, very seldom a line breaks. But so if you can get out here and get rid of these trees near power lines, you're going to save a lot of money. And maybe our rates would go down a little bit. But that's the biggest problem, trees near power. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque? Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Okay. Now, back to where I was. Number 6. Request to advertise for a public hearing for a proposed addition to chapter 250 of the motor vehicles and traffic. Mr. Gleason? This public hearing would be June 12th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess this probably needs a little bit of history, background. I became involved in this, 3 or 4 weeks ago, but I guess the police chief and Brian Wood had been involved with this for 6 to 8 weeks. Specifically, it's the northern end of Anthony Road. It becomes a problem area mostly every summer. There's a right of way there with a lot of access for fishermen, et cetera. And it's kind of exacerbated this year by the fact that somebody's also building a house. So with very little road in that for parking, that people have come up with some fairly creative ways to park there. Rather than parking parallel to the roadway, they're angle parked and parking in front of people's driveways, mailboxes, et cetera. And police chief and Brian had worked with some of the neighbors to come up with a concept to designate 3 actual parking spots, which would be painted on the roadway. And as such, those would be the only places that people could park other than their own driveways. So as far as any kind of ordinance, I guess the approach here that has come up, the solicitor has come up with, is probably the best way to handle it. I think the numeric numbering of this notice may be incorrect. I think there's already a subsection C in there, and this might be subsection E, but the gist of it has not changed. So basically, it would be to advertise for that public hearing. People could come out and weigh in either way, whether that's a good change or not. So questions I could answer on that?
This would, thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
President. This would be to advertise for a hearing.
Yes.
And I would hope that, I support advertising for a hearing on it, and I would hope that residents that are directly impacted would, if not come, at least provide some written. I don't want to force a new system or a new, ordinance on folks that don't want it, so I just want to make sure they want it.
Seconded, I think.
Yeah. For the public hearing will be June 12th.
Right.
That's all.
Right.
This is just to advertise for the public hearing.
Did Len make the motion to have the public hearing? This was, I think, what Dr. Ryan was
think that's
seconding.
what Dr.
It
Ryan
was a
Yeah.
little amorphous,
saying, and
and so I
I'm sorry
think I
about
was
that,
second.
but I'll defer to Mr. Gleason because I think it's his, but I'm happy.
And I know I've been very contrary tonight, which is my nature,
No,
but in any event, I can tell you about 100 neighborhoods in this town that have a similar problem. And if you want to have signs all over the place and our police responding to signs all over the place, Island Park has all. You're talking about Common Fence Point. Common Fence Point, if you haven't noticed, is actually all of the roads were laid out by Henry Brown and they're all supposed to be 50 feet across. I mean, none of them are. Most of them are 20 feet, if that. I think that, you know, signage in terms of warning that if you create a hazard, you might get ticketed, is a little ambiguous. I'm not sure that anybody's going to fight a $30 ticket, but by the same token, so I just warn you, it's a proverbial can of worms. There will be people from many neighborhoods who will want to have the same kind of restrictions. And we can be like Historic Hill down in Newport. But for advertising, yeah, what the heck?
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levet?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye, motion passes 7-0. Okay, we are going to move on to number 7. It's a request that council follow Robert's Rules of Order with regards to using voice votes rather than roll call for all motions. Mr. Levesque.
Thank you, Mr. President. Believe it or not, I am making an argument to shorten the meetings. It may not seem to be my my ballywick, but I find it tiresome. I just do. To go one and have the vote taken. What you can do, quite frankly, is call the vote. You can call that the ayes have it. If somebody clearly says no, you can identify the no, or if they noes win it, you can identify the ayes. A person can ask to be registered as having voted negative, and they can also ask for a roll call. So it simply does not really change anything other than it should be able to speed up some of the more routine activities that we have. Call the vote, take the vote. If somebody wants to be recorded negative, they can just say so. So I would move that we use Robert's Rules of Order for the purposes of voting in the future.
I'll second it for discussion. I believe this was something that came down during COVID, specifically from the Secretary of State's when they developed new rules of online. Everybody had to do a roll call because you had to prove that you were actually there. That's why the roll call votes were there. I'm fine with the president being able to say everyone in favor, anyone opposed. Your suggestion is I yell no and he yells aye. I think you,
Yeah.
all in favor, vote aye, any opposed would vote nay, would be.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah, that would be great.
as long as it's okay with the way the Open Meetings Act was changed with the Secretary of State and the Attorney General, that we don't have to do that anymore.
Not at the moment. However, it helps me by going through it.
Selfishly, it helps me, but
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
President. So if under Robert's rules, the ayes must be called and then the nays must be called. And then the presiding officer, the president, would say the motion carries either unanimously or by whatever count it may be, 5-2, 6, 4, 3. It would be an additional burden on Mr. Aguirre, which is fine by me, that upon saying the motion passes 4-3 with Mr. So-and-so, Ms. So-and-so, Dr. So-and-so opposed. That would provide the same information as a roll call vote in like fashion as saying the motion passes unanimously, provides the same information as a roll call vote. One of the underpinning philosophies or reasons for Robert's rules is to provide a leveling of a playing field so that more outspoken people can't dominate a discussion, less outspoken people are entitled to be recognized by the president if followed correctly. And likewise, calling for calling for the yays and nays doesn't allow someone to sit and wait and see what everybody else is doing first, which I don't do, others may not do, but it still provides the opportunity for folks to measure how they may vote based on how others vote for them. And so again, to level the playing field, calling for the yays and nays levels the playing field. And so I would support this. I understand that rules may change. We do have an online community that watches and that needs to know who's voting in what way. And that's why the president would need to recite after each vote the yays and nays who voted on one side. And of course, the open meetings laws may evolve and state laws will always supersede Robert's, our parliamentary procedures, but I'll support this. Thank you.
I mean, I'm just trying to think back because we've been doing this for so long now, but that's how we used to do it, wasn't it? All in
Yes.
favor? Aye. Opposed?
Yes.
So we're just turning the clock back a little bit.
Nothing was not retrograde.
No, Viva Voce. It's in the backup. Before we vote.
Nancy Grieve, 110 Thayer Drive. Did you get that? I'm just speaking in a public meeting. I'm not an elected official, yet I had to give my name to speak. I believe the roll call vote is important. It's important to the people in the room. It's important to the people at home. It may be more efficient. It may save time to do it the other way. I have a couple of suggestions from Mr. Levesque. If he wants to save time, stop interrupting everyone. You know,
Oh, I
we live in a democratic republic. It's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to save time. But the roll call vote shows transparency. And I can't imagine going back to the ayes without knowing exactly who says it. And it would be difficult enough sitting in the room. I can't imagine what it would be like at home, trying to figure out who voted for what. Please do not vote aye to this motion. It's ill-conceived and it will not help the residents.
Well, Ms. Grieve, I think what Mr. Katzman just explained was that it would be up to the president. If there was a split vote, it would be up to the president to say, this is who voted in favor, this is who voted against. So
Do
we don't know.
Do we want to trust one
You don't wanna
person
trust the
to
president?
understand that, I understand that Portsmouth calls you the president. I only have one president, whether I like him or not, but that's beside the point. It would be difficult enough for you to know whether you had 4 ayes or not, or 4 nays, or 3 ayes.
I think I could do it. I think whoever's sitting in this seat could clearly identify who votes for something and who votes against it. I mean, because it's still got to get recorded. If I sit here and said, these
If
4
you're going
voted
to-
yes,
if
and
you're-
these 3 voted no, and
if-
there was like, if something was wrong, the person would speak up and say, no, I voted against it, or I voted for it. I don't think
Hopefully, but
Hopefully.
is it going to be recorded who voted?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's
All right.
not what Robert's rule says.
Well, so what actually?
Make a motion that does that. And
Robert's rules is what Mr. Vec is.
I know,
is
but
voting. But I will also note that when the minutes of the meeting are published and adopted by the council, the minutes also identify who voted which way.
right now they do.
They also did before when we did.
Not always.
Yeas and nays.
Not always.
Yeah.
Well, they should have.
It's required by the Open Meeting Act requires that all the individual votes be recorded and placed in the minutes. That's been the case for years and
Forever.
years.
So either way, however we decide to do it, it'll be acknowledged who voted for or opposed.
Correct. If there's any confusion, then typically, historically, the president would say, we'll take a hands, all opposed, all in favor, all opposed, and the clerk writes it down and it gets published in the minutes. This is the way it's been done for years and years. It doesn't
change the fact that the Open Meetings Act requires it.
Well, if, I assure you, if this is approved, it won't go into effect tonight, because I'll have to do my homework for the next meeting, so. But, any further questions or comments?
You called me back.
What's that?
Thank you, Mr. President. Larry Fitzmaurice, 50 Kristen Court, real quickly. I watched these meetings over the Zoom business for, I don't know what, a year and a half or so. I could never tell what the votes were. I know you all think that that was probably more easy to understand than it really was. And I just, I found it a constant irritation. I couldn't tell really much of anything. And I think it's a fine idea to go ahead and do this, as long as you say, as you've already postulated, Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith voted no to the motion. Then that will tell everybody what the result was. As long as you do that, that's fine. But if you don't, we're not going to know what you said most of the time. Thank you.
Understood. Understood. Thank you for those comments.
I just went back to 2017 just to pull up meeting minutes. And there was one vote that wasn't unanimous. And it's clearly stated, motion passed 5-2, Dr. Ryan and Ms. Fujifusa in dissent.
No one listens.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes. No, 7-0. Unanimous. I'm not doing this until next meeting.
Here's another one from 2018 where motion failed 3-3. Dr. Ryan, Ms. Fujifusa, and Mr. Katzman voted in dissent. And the next one was 5-1, with me voting in dissent. So it's always, I'm not going to say always, never can be definitive, but 99.999% of the time, it's written down specifically who voted for and against. We're human, things happen, mistakes have been made. We're not all perfect, but it's in there, and it
Okay.
always has been.
Okay,
Okay,
we're gonna
thank you.
move on. Okay, number 8. It's a request to amend ordinance 99-6-28, an ordinance relating to adjustment of tax exemption in years of townwide real property reevaluation. Help.
Good evening. This is just every 3-year bookkeeping type measure, so we've complied with Rhode Island general law.
Because the Rhode Island general law authorizes us to adjust our credits. Is that, but this year, it's going to actually have a negative effect on people because the tax rate went down. Is that
But the
true?
assessed value goes up. It's the dollar savings has to be the same.
Okay, so the
So-
dollar savings will be the same.
Exactly.
Okay,
So for example, the veterans and the seniors, this past year, the assessed value was 16,420. It's gonna go up to $20,125 of assessed value to make up for the rate
for the
change.
change in the rate. But it will be the same dollar but they're not getting any inflation, huh? I think, that's cool. I would move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Just have one question.
Oh,
Mr. President.
sorry.
Just so I'll know for future reference, we're basically amending an ordinance, correct? Now, in this case, why wouldn't you have to have a public discussion on that?
I believe
In other
state
words-
law allows you to do it upon a revaluation
Okay.
without having a formal ordinance.
So
adopted.
certain things, and I guess solicitor would know that some require an ordinance change.
What
to
you
the
and I
public.
want to do requires advertising. It's just the way.
What the
it
state
is.
wants to do. We don't have
Point
to
out,
advertise.
Our charter does not have a provision for adopting ordinance that requires, I mean, if there's a zoning amendment, if there's a budget hearing, things like that, state law will require advertising 3 weeks. But the council several years ago adopted a practice that other ordinances will have a 1 ad in the paper. For a hearing. It's a council policy and practice rather than a requirement.
Portsmouth versus state. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, we're gonna move on to number 9, our public hearing, to consider the proposed amendment to add the following new article and section to chapter 352 taxation. Article 15, property tax classification. Number 352-52 pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 44-5-11.8. The town hereby adopts a system of classification of taxable property in the town as follows. A, class 1, all rateable real estate. B, class 2, all rateable tangible personal property. C, class 3, motor vehicles and trailers subject to excise tax created by Rhode Island General Law type 44, chapter 34.
So, Mr. President, if I understand, we're just removing the commercial designation. Business commercial designation from our tax system.
When you go, when you want to keep one, it used to be all the rateable properties, but because you're separating one, now you've got to separate the tangibles. So you have all rateable real estate, which would be commercial.
But you're putting all of the real estate in one bucket and then tangible
in
and
another
still the order.
bucket. And it's,
Thank you.
all right, my son, kind of where you still have to include motor vehicles, even if we don't tax motor vehicles.
So this is a public hearing. Are there any comments?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye, so motion passes 7-0 to close the public hearing.
Motion to approve the ordinance change as presented.
All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Okay. Now, we're gonna move on to item number 10. Curbside collection white paper review for RFP preparation. Mr. Woodhead.
Council President, members of the council. I'd like to start off with a little bit of background, where we were and where we are now in the process. So the council requested a cost comparison between curbside collection and the operation of the transfer station back in January 2022, as a transfer station contract was about to expire in January 1st, 2023. So we worked with our consultant, Ted Siegler, he's online right now, with DSM Environmental to issue an RFP in August 2022. There were 3 bids for this RFP, and in October 2022, at a council meeting, it was voted that the 3 bids were to be rejected, and the staff worked with the consultant to develop a hybrid waste management option for an RFP. This plan should include, number 1, curbside collection for the residents, for all the residents in the entire town. Number 2, the elimination of the page of throw bags. And 3, the utilization of the transfer station for bulky waste and diversion materials. With this vote, we had to extend the transfer station for 2 more years until June 30th, 2025. We met with our consultant, to discuss the council's request, which resulted in a white paper for the council for review. In this white paper, there are a few questions that the council will need to decide on prior to preparation of a new RFP. If anyone has any questions, myself or our consultant Ted is online to answer them. And if we go by the white paper, the first question for the council is, after reviewing all the white paper comments, with the council, like staff, to move forward with the development of our RFP for a hybrid waste management plan, Or is the council inclined to keep the transfer station as it currently operates and therefore move forward with an RFP for the transfer station operations only? That's like pretty much the first question we're asking the council.
Mr. President? Yeah. Are we in line for motion? I would move that we do we proceed with the curbside pickup to eliminate the transfer station with regard to, anyway, household items.
To develop an RFP
Develop-
for that.
Right.
Right.
I would second
She's always correcting me.
that.
I'm
It's
always
a big,
wrong.
a big difference.
For accuracy.
Yes. Are you second?
Yes, I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to move forward with an RFP for the hybrid RFP. Discussion. Second. I saw some hands. Mr. Gleason.
I think as part of your motion, you have alluded to closing the transfer station except for the bulky items. So I recall back in October, we voted to extend the life of the transfer station. Main reason was we hadn't hit a magic number that lower than what people are paying right now for the traditional curbside pickup. Because of, we have pay as you throw bags that adds to the cost. And we also have the bulky items that there was a sheet 4 pages long of how much it would cost to get rid of a toaster or a microwave oven, et cetera.
Correct.
Which was gonna keep the price from being practical. So basically, I would like to see some type of plan that allows people that want to use a transfer station to stay in effect. I know I will be outnumbered on that because I'm one of the 2,109 people that are using it now, as opposed to the 4,000 others that would like to have their prices reduced. So to me, it's a situation where prices are going to increase for people that have religiously used a compact station for whatever reason, and there are many. And prices we're hoping to get lowered for people that have made a decision to hire a private contractor for curbside pickup. In ranges that I understand go from $400 a year to $800. I've heard as high as $1,200. I really don't know what it is. But it seems to be all over the place what people are paying. And if you get a bill in the mail that says from Waste Management that says your next month's bill is going to go up by 5%, you don't see it, your bill goes up. So people have had to be proactive in trying to keep their rates low, go to new vendors, et cetera, in a shrinking field. That being said,
Point of order very quickly.
that, hold on.
Mr. Gleason, don't characterize why other people might want this. I want it for any number of reasons that have nothing to do with it affecting the cost that I am paying. So please, if you have a reason for voting for it, say what that reason is. But don't characterize why I am.
Let's just,
Thank you.
let's try to stay on point. I do want each council though to be able to speak.
I just
without
wanted
interrupting.
to clarify the motion because it's not as simple as just passing one motion that goes out to bid. I think basically there's individual line items that need to be discussed to try and come up with a,
And that can be
reasonable,
done
excuse me,
without
I have the floor.
Okay, hold on one second.
All right.
So let me just clarify something. The first question that I think Mr. Woodhead was asking us is, do we want to move forward with a hybrid plan? And if the answer is yes, then we need to go through and answer some of these questions.
Correct.
If we want us to stay as is, then it's the transfer station operation only.
Correct. That's
Right, so I think to your point, Mr. Gleason, if we do decide to move forward with the hybrid option, that's step one, but then tonight we still have to go through these other scenarios to further provide clarification to frame the RFP.
Okay,
So we still have some,
I would agree. It
Clean up
sounded
to
like
do.
we were just jumping from
no,
one to
I'm with
100 in
you.
a hurry.
No,
I
I
know,
I wanted to clarify.
And I like
Position.
to go over these one at a time. I don't want
Oh,
to do
yeah.
them all together. I like to do them one at a time so everyone has the time to comment and have questions, stuff like that. And I do understand Mr. Gleason's comments too. We're trying to keep the cost of the sticker program low. So if we did add waste and recycling to the transfer station as it is now, it's just going to increase the cost. So we're trying to keep the cost as low as we can for people to sign up for a management plan for the town.
So just so I could finish my commentary, if you would.
Yeah.
While I have my viewpoints, I will be voting on these individual sections to try and come up with the best RFP, even though I don't think it's what I would like to do. Okay. Thank you.
That's fair, Mr. Gleason. Mr. Hamilton, did you?
Yeah, no, I mean, we can go through this. It's, if we're not gonna go, we're going in, gonna be half pregnant. This council either needs to decide to close the transfer station and put waste management back into the taxes and do it for everybody. Or not. That's just my opinion. Either keep the transfer station open, let people make their own choice, either walk with their, vote with their feet and hire somebody outside or use the transfer station. Or we need to build this back into the budget and just have waste pickup curbside for everybody. But that would take multiple years to do it.
I'm gonna give everybody an opportunity. So,
This is not what I was gonna start with, but just in response to, I believe our discussion in October, we did talk about wanting to develop a plan for how we were gonna get this back on the tax rolls. And there was pretty good agreement that we should strive to do that, even if it took, several years to do so. So I agree with that. And I think that is the way we need to go. And then just overall to the question at hand, I think there is no perfect answer that makes everybody happy. That's obvious. What we're doing now is also not working for the majority of Portsmouth residents. So, throughout the last 6 years of debating trash in Portsmouth, and many more before that, I'm sure that I was not involved in. I have taken the time to look at a lot of other towns and how they do it and how other people do it and what operations work and what operations don't work. And I'm really confident that developing an RFP for a hybrid solution and kind of getting into some of these more finer points and questions that are in the document that you submitted is going to get us the best option for the majority of Portsmouth residents. So thank you.
thank you, Ms. Abbott. Questions, comments on this side? Dr. Ryan?
So Brian, how many more years does the compactor at the transfer station have in its estimated life?
So we did have a PM done with McGuire equipment. They came down. There's a couple minor PM issues that we have to take care of, but they said the compressors are in good shape, so we could probably, they say they could run for 20 years. So they say we have no problem with the
That's good to know. As far as disposal of bulky waste, the overall cost to the town, including all the people in it, what's the comparison between having people schlep their bulky waste to the transfer station versus having the hauler pick it up their curbside? Is one cheaper than the other?
It's kind of hard until we get the bids back, but we are still gonna, when we do an RFP, a hybrid solution, we are still gonna keep those lists of items that people can still do curbside pickup if people don't want to go to the transfer station, because there are some people right now, 2/3 of the people aren't using the transfer station and they are trying to get rid of their bulky waste somehow already, other than dropping off on the side of the road. But they still have that option. So we're still going to give that option to the residents if they want to do that, or they can go bring it to the transfer station. So we'll give them that option still.
So before we open it up, I would love to find a way to keep the transfer station open. My concern would be the diminishing use from residents. The number keeps going down and at a certain point, I'm glad to hear that it does have maybe, I know you can't say 20 years, but
Right.
it is a piece of equipment and it could break tomorrow.
The choice
But-
won't be made for us tomorrow.
Right, but I mean, what we need to think about is beyond June 2025 is what we need to think about. And I think we have to have a plan, because if if something were to happen to the transfer station, then those people that are currently using the transfer station no longer have an option. They're gonna have to then go find a private hauler. I mean, I've been using the transfer station probably my whole adult life and even as a kid. So I would love for us to be able to find a way to keep it open. I don't, the people that use it, I think are willing to still pay for the cost that the sticker fees keep going up because some people drop off. But I mean, from my experience and the folks that I know that use it, it's still my opinion and in their opinion, it's still cheaper than curbside pickup. Because you have the ability for the yard waste, you have the ability for the bulky items. I know some folks that do use curbside and the bulky items, they have to pay premiums for those extra items. So Ms. Abbott's right. There's no perfect solution. I kind of like the way things are working, but that I don't know if that's the best answer moving forward. My only fear is that if something were to happen at the transfer station, then we really don't have a plan to move forward. Moving forward with the hybrid plan, the big question is how do we afford it? And how do we make it affordable? And when you read through some of these things, there's going to be a cost. And I don't, that's another thing that we have to take into consideration here is how do you make this affordable for the town? And I'm not sure we're going to get there tonight answering these questions, but maybe we have to put out the RFP and see. I understand.
The biggest thing in terms of getting trash collection back in is slowly building into the budget money that can be put to do this, which would be $250,000 a year for the next 5 years to get us to even close to being able to afford this in the taxes. And that's just putting money aside so that it's built into the budget so that we could do this. So,
Can I make one other point too? At this juncture, we should be either, I mean, obviously the request for proposal will go out. But if we're not intending on actually doing it, there's no sense in it. All right? As far as I'm concerned, we are bearing the cost for this trash here. The trash goes somewhere. You either pay for it yourself and have somebody show up at your house, or you drive and you stay in a long line to drop it off at the compact station. Let me tell you something. As far as I'm concerned, that's pollution. That's a waste of people's time. I read the newspaper, but I used to. Okay. So we either are committed to doing something like this. And by the way, the compact station was obsolete when I was on the council. We were told we were going to have to get rid of it in 1990. Okay. So I think this is the future. I agree with you. There are going to have to be some things. But don't think you're not paying for it now, because it's being paid for now. It's just not in the town budget.
the transfer station is paid by the users, period. The person who goes there with their car pays for it, whether it's the $250 for the sticker plus the bags. The only residents of the town of Portsmouth that receive any subsidy for the trash removal are the residents of Prudence Island.
Right.
Portsmouth residents, mainland
It's
residents.
entirely accurate.
It's 100% accurate.
We run the station. We have the people here to collect the money. You hand them out the stickers. We provide the servicing for that. All of those things cost money. Okay, so I mean, it's not like, and by the way, we don't charge them rent for that facility. That's our facility. We could say, hey, give us $20 when you pull in here.
When things break, when the skin had to be replaced, all of that bonding went into the transfer station fund. It is paid for by the people who use the transfer station.
Enterprise.
The only thing that you're talking about is, okay, we're spending a little bit of time for somebody who's already sitting at their window to give me a sticker instead of, I don't know, collecting a tax.
You're talking
But
about somebody in the tax assessor's
Yes.
office, you just think is just sitting at the window.
who is sitting at the window to do a
Okay,
job,
now-
yes. But the entire station is paid for by the people who use it, period.
We're just trying to find a way so that everyone can remove their trash in
One
the
of things
most.
is that they're
Hold on,
paying
one at
for
a
it.
time, one at a
Correct.
time.
They're
One at a
paying
time.
for it. So I'm paying for it when somebody comes by my house. They're paying for it. Nobody's getting away free. So the question is there a better way to pay for it?
Well, yes, we all agree that there's a better way to pay for it.
Okay.
That's what we're trying
But
to do.
Hold on.
we can't afford to have everybody pay for it, as we've had discussions all night long about funding sources. We don't have the money in the budget in order to do it with the flip of a switch. Whether
To
you
make
stay,
it be a part of our taxes rather than an enterprise.
Right.
absolutely.
To buy all the drum.
And I'm not suggesting that if we if we go back to putting it in the taxes, that we keep the transfer station open. I'm suggesting that if we go to it going into the taxes, a truck comes by your house once a week and picks up your trash. It's one truck from one company rather than 14 trucks from 14 different companies coming down your street every other day.
So let me just say, other than the gentleman that you suggested, throw it over they used to throw it actually in my family's old dump, okay? Everybody pays for the trash to be removed from town. Everybody's paying, okay? Whether you pay for it in taxes or you pay for it out of a checking account, it's still being paid.
Yes.
So it's not like all of a sudden we're throwing a colossal burden on people that they haven't been dealing with.
No, but we're putting a colossal burden into the budget.
Goes into the budget.
That's the colossal
Yeah, but
burden.
that's
The
our
budget
job.
is the people in the town of
Right.
Portsmouth who are paying the bill.
Okay, hold on. I just want to keep it, I want to keep some order. So. Yeah, I'm trying hard. Robert's not my name, but Ms. Abbott.
This argument is a bit ridiculous, frankly. Nobody's getting their trash removed for free. That is correct. I agree. Everyone's paying for it. Whichever way we slice it, it's always Portsmouth taxpayers paying for it, whether they pay it taxes and then pay for their trash removal, or whether they just pay for trash removal from their pocket. So with 7,200 eligible households, only 2,000 using the transfer station, clearly the current system we have isn't working for the majority of Portsmouth taxpayers. There's a whole matrix of better ways that we can provide trash removal services to our residents at a net savings. Now, the issue is fitting it into the budget. Now, it's our job here to figure out how to achieve that in the least painful way possible. At the end of the day, it's always going to be Portsmouth taxpayers paying the bill to get their trash removed. Let's just figure out how to do it in the most efficient and, cost-effective way.
So any further questions or comments from counselors? Okay, and we'll come back to how it gets absorbed in the taxes, and because we do have it's down the road, but I mean, we do have a 4% cap. So to Mr. Hamilton's point, it would take us a while. This isn't something that could happen overnight. It could take a few years to set the stage to do this. That's the caution. That's all. It's the caution.
And we're modeling this RFP at like Middletown's RFP, that you're gonna purchase a sticker from the town and attach it to your recycling bin and your waste bin. So you do have this, that's how we're modeling the RFP like we did last time, just like Middletown. So it's still gonna be an enterprise zone. It's not gonna be paid through the taxes. For now, correct.
Okay, so at this point then, we need to vote to determine
So
on
you're,
the hybrid? No. Yeah. Okay,
sure.
right. So we have sure. Okay. Oh, yeah, I couldn't see behind Mr. Woodhead. Sorry.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
council members, member or a homeowner here in Portsmouth. And I went to the last October meeting and everything. I heard of the RFP, the motion to go forward with that. I think one
sir.
thing,
Can I just, your name and address for the record?
Douglas Duchesne, 122 Richard Drive, Portsmouth. So one thing that I know that it's the one thing that was left out of the RFP, I believe, is one thing is to get rid of the pay as you throw, and also the bags, and also pushing everybody to go to the curbside service. And I've heard horror stories all throughout our neighborhood. different companies, shutting down. The prices are exorbitant, much more than what we're paying for the transfer station. And I feel I applaud what you had said before about the transfer station. I mean, it is borne on the, all the residents who use the transfer station. And I think for myself, I'm willing to go up in price if necessary. If something breaks in the transfer station and it needs to be repaired across all the users and everything, the price has to go up. The price goes up a little bit. But I think it works. I am very concerned about, one question I do have is all of the yard waste. Is the yard waste, are we bound to the curbside service? Or can we still take all the yard waste to the transfer station?
A little ahead of us, but I think there was an idea to actually have yard waste be able to be disposed, I think, at the transfer station. Is that correct?
No.
Oh,
Right. No.
Where?
It was all going to be curbside.
Would all be.
Even
curbside.
yard waste.
Yard waste
That's
is
what I
all
thought.
curbside.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So that's my concern too. I've got a half acre. I bag all my yard waste and everything else. I take it religiously to the dump and put it in the proper receptacle. I think the rules and regulations at the transfer station are very fair for any large items like mattresses. If you have to pay something for that, I think that's very fair. And I would just request that you can consider of keeping the transfer station open and give it to the residents that want to do that, even though the numbers may be going down. I think you may be seeing the the participation going up. When people start seeing that the curbside services are, some of their prices are out of control. So, and they can very quickly, and your hands are tied, then you have to go out and try and figure out who to go to next to be able to do that. So just request that consideration. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Going to go one at a time. Mr. Roberts?
Peter Roberts, 80 Elmhurst Avenue. About the transfer station. You can go many days there and get rid of your garbage. It doesn't stink. Doesn't smell at all. But people who go out for walks, ask them, when they're walking down the street and walk by one of these ones that the curbside picks up, they stink. They really stink. They're bad. And most people, I go to the transfer station, my wife goes, my daughters go, because we don't mind doing the work. I can understand there's people who don't want to work. That's understandable. But why do it to us? And it costs less too. And all these trucks driving up and down the road, you know what they're doing to our roads? They're tearing them to pieces. These trucks should not be on them. And people who don't want to go to transfer station, that's okay. But 1/3 of this community goes to that transfer station. And you're ignoring that? That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. President. Larry Fitzmaurice, 50 Kristen Court, in case anybody forgot. I just want to remind everybody of something that maybe I'm the only one that remembers. When the transfer station was paid for out of the budget, which was at the time $500,000 a year, and we switched to the current system, which is you buy a sticker and you pay for it yourself. That money wasn't returned to the taxpayers. It was used in the budget for something else. So there was already $500,000 that it was always paid for by the citizens many years in that budget somewhere. Now, obviously, nobody's going to be able to find it anymore because the money's fungible. But I just wanted to remind everybody, I tried to get that listed in the budget as a revenue event, but that was declined. So I just mentioned that. So we already are paying $500,000 for it as it is.
How long ago was that?
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, let's.
Oh, come on.
It
How long
was,
ago was that?
It was 2007.
2007.
2006.
Right after the 10th.
If I may, Mr. President, I don't mean to interrupt, but I do need to correct some misinformation.
Oh, I
It was 2006.
Okay,
It
I
was
stand
It
corrected.
was a colloquially referred to a tent meeting operated by, championed by an organization that you. There was a vote at that tent meeting to cut the municipal budget and the school department budget. The school department sued to get enough money to fund themselves because they could under law, and nearly all of the cut was restored. On the town side, 500 to 600,000, I don't remember the exact number, but 600,000, give or take, was cut from the municipal budget in August after the budget had been adopted. So there was no, oh, we've hidden $500,000 in budget. It was cut at the tent meeting in order to carry on town operations. With the money we had, the town moved the transfer station from being on the tax rolls to being an enterprise fund paid for by a user fee. That's how it got off the tax rolls, was because of the tent meeting and the way that was the decision made at the time on how to address a sudden $600,000 cut in the budget, was to move a $600,000 cost item off the budget, the user fee. I'd love to put this back on tax rolls so that it's a municipal service. To get there requires a long period of time because with the tax caps we have and the other needs of the community in place that we have to fund, we can't just add $1 million operation. It's going to take years.
He was saying the $600,000 is still there. It's still there. That's what his point. It's still there.
It's clearly not.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, it wasn't returned to the taxpayers in a tax cut.
No, because it was
Therefore,
gone. It was cut from the budget. It was never raised. Your taxes went down because it was cut at the tent meeting.
No, they didn't.
Yes, it did.
All right, we're not
Answer,
gonna
Mr.
go back and fix.
Done. with
Mr.
this
President.
particular- Done with this particular.
Mr.
person.
President,
You
I'd
may
like
say
to make
whatever
a fast
comments you
answer
wish,
to
but
Mr.
Done.
Katzman. Mr. Katzman's not quite
Morris.
accurate.
It's Morris.
The budget was not cut. It was reduced to a 4% increase. It was a 9%, 9.1% tax increase. That's why the tent meeting took place. It was reduced to a 4% tax increase. I made the motions. So at any rate, let me go to the other point I wanted to make. And we'll debate the tent meeting some other day.
That's what happened.
Let Mr. Fitzmaurice finish.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Are we going down memory lane too much further?
Yeah, let's
I didn't
just-
go down
No,
memory
no,
lane.
no,
You
let's-
guys did.
let's-
I asked you what you were talking about with $500,000 missing. Turned out you were talking about 2006. Let's try to get at least into maybe the last decade.
All right, let's let.
Mr. President,
Fitzmaurice
If
finish.
you'll allow me to speak, I'll move on.
Let's finish.
I would like to say that, I'd like to second some of the comments made by Mr. Roberts. I'm down in Water Street and down in Island Park a fair amount of time. And those roads are not sufficient to support those trucks. And there is a cost there. And if we're going to do an estimate of costs, we need to look at a faster replacement of roads in some of these areas than we're doing now. Those
Mr.
roads are
Fitzmaurice,
20
can I
feet
just-
wide.
Can I ask you a question about that? Just
sir.
specifically. How many trucks do you see go by on a daily basis on Water Street today? If we go to a single exclusive hauler, it would be one truck once a week coming down your street rather than multiple trucks every other day. So the damage to the roads would actually be less if we went to an exclusive single hauler with a one-day pickup at your house.
Yeah, but I'm not speaking to what your proposal, and I agree with you that we'll have fewer trucks, maybe. But I don't, we're gonna have enough trucks to carry the trash.
Agreed, but
And it's not gonna be
damage to-
just one hauler, the equivalent of one hauler that's in use today. It's gonna
If
be
there's-
more than that.
If there's one
if
person on
there
your
is-
street who has curbside pickup, there will be at least one truck coming down your street at least once a week.
I can count at least 4 that are in my neighborhood. And it's Monday,
Yeah,
Wednesday.
And I certainly could count at least 4 too.
Right, so my point is that your neighborhood will be once a week as opposed to 3 times a week now.
Another
It
point.
did, but that's okay.
Another point of information, you're right, there would be 1 vehicle. 2, the town would be the one negotiating with the haulers. So it wouldn't be, waste management and everything. They would all be bidding on to us and we would hopefully get the lowest price. Right now, you might get somebody that gouges you a little bit, but we would collectively, hopefully, for the 7,000 people here that would use it, a much lower fairer price.
I get to speak? I think the road business though is important because we're talking about a proposal and I'm talking about a current state of affairs. The damage is being done now. And maybe if we go to one hauler, we can deal with that. But, these roads are, I don't know how thin those things are. The Public Works would have to tell me, but those machines are big. By the way, they're very hard to get around and a lot of times you can't. So any rate, I think that's a cost of doing business and I'm just pointing it out. People can make the assessment as they wish. The other thing is that there's still a lot of people using the transfer station. And I hear a lot from them and I tried to read through all of these online received commentaries about the white paper. And it looks to me, at least about half, I haven't read all the way through it, want to keep the transfer station. And they're concerned about trash around the current system that we have, which I concede could be improved. But there's another issue, and that is, I don't know where you guys live, but where I live, we have coyotes and they get out in the cul-de-sac and howl at night sometimes. And sooner or later, those guys are going to start getting into the trash because I've seen them. I guarantee you they're plenty big enough to get those cans open. So that's going to be an issue as well, sooner or later. And that should be I don't know if there's a solution to that, but I suggest that we take a look at that as well. But in the end, private hauling is something that I think we need to allow our citizens to do if they wish to do it. And as long as they keep the trash down, in other words, the stuff doesn't get scattered around. And the people who want to use the transfer station should be allowed to do that as well. But somewhere along the line, we all paid for that thing, transfer station. And to close it, we can't really sell the damn thing. So if we close it, it's a dead loss. Point that out as well. Thank you.
My name is Joseph Dobrat, 132 Richard Drive. I just wanted to say that I've enjoyed the transfer station all these years. And I want to make an observation that in the last year or so, the operation over there is much improved. It's cleaner. They're doing a much better job of controlling the C&D waste. I don't see a lot of commercial vehicles coming in, dumping rugs and stuff like that. I think we could probably do a little bit better job on the C&D. I see a lot of C&D going into the bulky bin, but I don't want to get into that too much. I don't have room for 2 barrels in my single car garage. And I really do enjoy being able to go to the transfer station and dumping off my 132-gallon bag once a week and maybe 2 bags of grass clippings. And once in a while, I do have a real bulky item. I understand that the transfer station is an enterprise operation now. And as Mr. Hamilton pointed out, it's got to pay for itself. But I don't mind paying for school children. I don't mind anything for my taxes. I like to have the police available. I like to have fire department available. But I'm 84 years old. And the only service that I always get from the town is the transfer station. And I really think that we need to be able to put some funding into it. Now, we keep raising the price. Well, that's going to drive down the usership. And it's a self-defeating operation to keep on raising the prices. We've seen it. You can go into the statistics. We've got to, in my opinion, we need to subsidize it by the town somehow or other. And I recognize that it's enterprise zone, and to go back to the tax base is an impossible thing. But thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kyle Fenton. I'm from 71 Canaccia Drive. So basically, I am in favor of keeping the transfer station as is. I've always enjoyed it for the 11 years I've been in Portsmouth right now. One of the things I just want just to relay is that I think it's more than just kind of dollars and cents. I think you're saying just kind of for the lowest possible price and stuff like that. I think one of the other advantages you have to consider is also convenience as well. You know, you have like I would say 80% of my waste can go, you know, in trash hauls and stuff like that. But it's that 20%. It's the oil, it's the, you know, the yard and waste, it's the big bulky items and stuff like that. That is just it's just you know, it's just impractical to like try to like mash it all together and to put it into that little bin thing, you know, so it becomes a kind of like a real inconvenience. And not only that though, being able to, you know, be able to dump your trash anytime you want, just like this other gentleman says, is that, you know, I don't want to keep trash in my garage for a week. Obviously I don't want to keep it outside because rats and, you know, other stuff will get to it. So being able to dump whenever I can, I mean, I understand it's closed on Wednesdays and Sundays, but pretty much anytime that I can, I think is one of the biggest positives about the transfer station. I understand the only negative is obviously you have to put it in your car, you have to transfer, you have to take it there. But for the most part, you know, as long as you take precautions and stuff like that, it's never an issue for me. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to add something to what I said. What was brought up about the trucks going down the street? Today, I saw 3 trucks go down my street, different companies. They pick up different places. And one of these companies goes down, turns around at the end and comes back up on them. So that's 4 very heavy trucks, boom, boom, like this all the time. Cars don't do that. SUVs don't do that. Pickups up. But a garbage truck, even when it's empty, that thing's unbelievable in weight. And they're tearing our roads up. And 3 today, I'll see a couple more during the week. They don't belong there.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
John Humphrey, 95 Peleg Road. I just wanted to raise a general question about the town's, how it negotiates with its suppliers. And in connection with the trash, the Portsmouth bags, which we have to purchase to use the transfer station, cost more than the bags for Middletown, which seems very peculiar. Why is that the case? And secondly, why is the quality of the bags that we purchase so poor? We paid $2.15 for each bag. And if you put something in it, if you put another bag inside it, that bag will rip, which has happened many times to us. So the quality is dreadful. The price is far too high. Well, I don't understand why the price is different from Middletown. There is one other issue that I could perhaps raise, which is of residents in connection with the transfer station, which is of residents who do not have a car. As we all know, the private pickup is more expensive than the $250 fee to dump. We have, for example, some refugees living in Portsmouth, you may not know that, but there are. They do not have a car. They cannot afford $250. Anyway, they certainly can't afford a private pickup. So what's supposed to happen to the refugees? How are they supposed to get rid of their trash in Portsmouth? Would any of you like to volunteer to go once a week to pick up their trash for them?
Excuse me, sir. You indicated they cannot afford to go to the transfer station. They don't have vehicles.
They can't afford.
How are they getting rid of their trash now?
They're getting rid of their trash by asking neighbors to take it for them.
I'm assuming without knowing that these people are renters. And if they're in a household, there would be in fact an opportunity for the owner of the property to do curbside pickup if they so desired.
Well, one family that I know is in housing that has been donated. It's a
Oh, that's good. That's
separate
great.
property which has been donated.
I mean, there's gonna be unique situations and it's. That's we can't answer that question about how we go pick up individual, because it's gonna, I don't think that's a fair question for you to be asking the council. If we'd like to go pick up their trash. I don't think that's a fair question.
No, obviously I was
I know, but.
I don't have a.
But the point is, I mean, I understand, your cost of the bags, quality of the bags, that's something we can handle. If people are choosing to live in Portsmouth, if they're, whatever their situation is, if the house was donated, well, then whoever donated the house, maybe they can donate the cost of the trash pickup for that person. I mean, that goes with the property. I mean, we can't be responsible for every renter and people that are, I don't think that was a fair question.
Well, I think you can take into consideration in now the fact that many residents do not have cars. So,
And to answer your cost of the bags is a calculation to help afford the cost of keeping a transfer station open. You're comparing apples and oranges when you're looking at Middletown and our bags. It's a different, the quality we can look at. We can discuss the issues of quality and the different color oranges that the lighter orange tends to tear more than the darker orange. And
yeah, well, and why can't they maintain the same?
that's a question that
the
is
same
for
color.
Mr. Woodhead to discuss with the vendor. And he's already put it in the back of his head.
And just,
Okay, thank you.
no problem. And if they do have a problem with the quality of bags, there is a barcode on the bags when you purchase them. All we just need is the number off the barcode on the very bottom. There is a phone number you can call too, but if you want to call our department, we can let Waste Zero know what the barcode is. It might be a manufacturing problem, or it could be just that it was a bad batch, and they'll reimburse people. I mean, they're very good about reimbursing. So we just need the code.
Okay. So. Nope.
Hi, my name's Ehor Slabicki at 35 Hathaway Drive. I'm also a member of the Solid Waste Recycling Committee here in town. And I'd like to, this transfer station and the hybrid curbside has been discussed a number of times at the committee. One thing that we came up with recently, and as a suggestion, was to one, keep the transfer station running as an enterprise. I think there's a lot of people already spoken. A lot of people like the transfer station. It's convenient for the time and schedule. People can recycle and make it count. I believe we got a rebate for recycling recently from Ryrick. And the transfer station is real convenient because you can bring a lot of things there to throw out. It's actually very clean, and there's actually no lines to coming in. There may, when you go there, there may be one or two cars there, if that many. So it's really quick to get through that. And also the transfer station sticker currently costs less than what people are paying for their curbside pickup. And the other part of the suggestion is to make a curbside pickup townwide, but also possibly run it as an enterprise business as well, so that people who join that pay for that through some kind of sticker or some kind of fee to the town rather than adding it to the tax base. That approach could lower the cost per person for curbside pickup because the one single trash hauler would actually benefit a little bit by using some of the town's capacity for throwing out our waste. It also, as Peel mentioned, you'd get fewer heavy trucks on the town roads, one down to maybe one a week versus, I know in a number of cases where people live on a cul-de-sac, there are 4 houses. Each house has its own waste hole, so they get 4 pickups every week. And then, this would allow residents who like curbside pickup to stay with it. And also, in effect, they would, in some cases, suffer with the rules that the waste haulers have. You know, they may have to pay $50 to throw out a microwave or a toaster, but that's part of what curbside pickup would cost them. And if they wanted to go to a transfer station, they could buy a transfer sticker and do that. And I think the bidding for a one hauler could also lower the cost for that whole as an enterprise business. So that's our thing are just sort of some of the discussions that we've had at the committee. Wanted to make them available for your considerations. Thank you.
I have a question for the speaker. Yes. Yeah. On the recycling committee, how many people on the committee use a compact station?
I know I do myself. I don't know how many others. We only have 4 people, so that's 25% of the committee uses it.
25%. Well, thank you. I just one comment. Talked about the responses to the white page. As you can see, everybody has come to the podium tonight. I haven't seen anybody come and speak for going curbside, but everybody has tried to defend keeping the transfer station open. Just so you know, if anybody took the time to read this survey, there were 58 responses. 2 of them were relative to Prudence Island. 4 of them, you can read them, but they don't really say I'm pro or con. There are 17 people that wanted curbside and 31 that want to keep the transfer station open. And there are 4 that you can't really tell, just throwing some comments in there. But one of the things that I think is a question for this RFP, if we're going to go through with this thing, is coming up with a solution for everybody. One of the things that has never been talked about is being able to keep it open for going out to bid. Whoever we're going to be dealing with is offering them the option of using the compact station. Because it seems to me when you fill up a trash truck, why would you want to run to Johnston with it when you can bring it to the compact station, dump your load there and put it into a bigger container? You could physically, you know, in theory, have people still using the dump for their own personal trash and having the hauler for town using that as a transfer station as it's called. Right. So you have less loads going to Johnston directly or less traffic on our state highways. And just to finish my notes, this is a paper that Daniela came up with in 2018 that showed, quote, there were 3,000 stickers sold last year, and it's the same old story. There'll be less people next year. We're going to have to make up the revenue. It was $850,000 to cost operate this transfer station then. However, I think we're at 590 or 600,000. I might be mistaken, but we are still managing to people put their money together to do that. The last thing I'd like to say is, you know, we could say our waste disposal options are becoming affordable for many households, but I like to put it in this respect. It is expensive. That's why most people have chose to stay with a transfer station, and they're paying $250 and maybe $100, $150 for the bags. But those people that are paying the $400 to $1,200, I equate it to a car payment. That's 2 payments, 3 payments. It's all relative. Is that a lot of money? Is this breaking people's banks in the town of Portsmouth? I really don't think so, but let's continue to talk trash.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gleason.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, Lisa Duchesne, 122 Richard Drive. I just had a question, actually.
Can you do me a favor? Can you just pull that down so people at home can hear? Thank you.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I was here in October and I just had a question for you. I think at the time the RFP was with R&D. Was that correct? The one that they had voted on the lowest price? Was that the company? Republic. Now, isn't Republic the one that has pulled out and has decided that they don't want to come anymore? So what happens in that case? That RFP, right after it was done, I had read and saw they pulled out. They don't want anything. So my neighbors and people in my neighborhood had to find and scramble to find another personal hauler to do their own. What happens? I understand there'll probably be a contract and it'll be for so many years, but after that contract, who's to say what's going to happen? Just like when they pulled out. I mean, literally, that was when we had talked about in October. I mean, everybody talked about possibly doing it. You know, oh, this is low, let's go with that. And then they're gone. They don't even want to do it. So what happens in that case then after that time? I just curious what happens when something like that happens. And then we're set up with that. The whole town's set up with that. And then they say, okay, we don't want to do this anymore in Portsmouth because it's too much for us to travel back.
Go ahead, Mr. Woodhead.
Well, like she was saying, we would have a contract. It's a 5-year. When we do the curbside pickup, they're gonna be amortizing their barrels over 5 years. So they do have a fight in the thing that they want to be paid. They want to stay here for at least 5 years to get their money back for the barrels the totes that we're getting from them. And then it's like any other contract. After 5 years, it goes back out to bid and we see if there's any other contractors that want to do it, maybe for a lower cost than what Republic's doing it, or whoever was doing it at the time, any vendor. We do that every year. Every time a contract's up, we always go back out to bid.
I mean, there's a lot of money in trash, Brown and Ferris, waste management. I mean, I have never seen actually anybody complain other than a strike that nobody was prepared to pick up the garbage. Well, I'm sure there would have been somebody that was willing to come in.
The problem is that any municipality that is not large enough to have its own internal trash collection is subject to this kind of a threat. There's no way to avoid it. So what we're trying to do is to try to find a solution at the lowest price that's most convenient to the majority of the residents here. That's the reason for the RFP. And what really all we're talking about tonight is what needs to go into that RFP. But the problem about people violating the contract, contractors pulling out, that will happen in any town that can't afford its own trash collection service. But
Ma'am,
such a small minority of
Yeah,
it.
we
Ma'am, you
can't,
need to come
we
to
can't
the
have the
microphone if you're-
conversation that way. Yeah, our counselor is violating the rules.
I've never done. No, I was just saying that's why I think people want to keep the transfer station
Right.
because it gives you the option then to do what you want to do, not with somebody coming in then saying, oh my God, in 5 years now, I'm going to have to get up for this contract,
Right,
like with
but
electric
it's-
or anything else. And I
but it-
understand.
But its capacity isn't enough for the entire town. So it will always be a solution for a minority of the citizens of the town. We have to make decisions that will benefit the entire town.
Right. And I understand Miss Abbott said that, how she said, well, this isn't working. And obviously it's not working because 2/3 of the people don't want it.
Well, even if.
No,
everybody-
actually, the capacity of the transfer station, if we were to put it in the tax rolls, it's not large enough to support the entire town of Portsmouth.
7,000 households cannot put their trash into the transfer station because its capacity is too small to handle that amount of waste.
So what did we do seriously, what did we do back when it was? Because I remember
We
living
had a lot
here
less people.
when it was like $5 for the sticker.
Yeah.
It was commissioned in 1972 when there were 9,000 people that lived here. There's 17,800 people that live in town now. But the capacity of the transfer station has not changed. It's
Mhm.
still the same footprint. So even though 1/3 of the people use the transfer station,
Mhm.
I'm not taking one side or the other.
Oh, no.
It's just fact. 1/3 of the people in town, it's a little less, use the transfer station. However, for a lot of the waste that we're using, they're getting close to the cap of what we're allowed to put into the Johnston dump without paying an extra fee.
Mhm.
So something's gonna have to give at some point. So if everybody were to go back into the transfer station, obviously, we've done a lot of work to make it cleaner, to make more people can get in and out of there at a quicker pace. But in reality, we have done that.
Mhm.
But what's made that viable is because less people are using. I mean, when I first came in town, I mean, the line every Saturday morning was to,
Yep,
you know,
I
well,
remember too.
all the way to Headley Street to the
Yep.
town hall.
Remember?
So this is why we're discussing this. I mean, a lot of good discussion tonight and the council has a lot to think about, but this is what we're trying to
Oh,
address.
and that's understandable. And I understand you have to do what's best for it. And basically what comes down is majority rules. But again, like you said, with the white papers, when you look at there, that isn't 50-50. That's 2/3 wanted open, you know, of the people who wrote in. I understand a lot of people probably didn't write in on the white paper.
Yeah, I think the more telling number is the number of people, the proportion of the town that actually uses the transfer station.
Right,
Which is a minority.
right.
So people who use the transfer station, for whatever reason, feel very strongly about it. People who just want to get rid of their garbage don't have strong feelings attached to
And
it.
my only concern, to be really honest, because I am out there and see it and talk to quite a few people, that the people who have the private haulers and that when they do want to get rid of something, it wasn't the same situation, but people do. When they want something big, they'll ask somebody else, well, do you have a truck that you can just bring a sofa or can you bring a chair? I can honestly stand here and say I've never done it. On my life, I've never done that, but that is what's happening when you say that it's the capacity too. We have a lot of other people utilizing that because you pay, you know, so much for a mattress, so much for a toaster, so much for an air conditioner, so much for everything. I'm not saying either way either. I understand you have to make the best decision for the town. My big question was that company pulling out and how that worked. That was all, really.
All right, so for tonight, let's get back to square one.
Yep.
Which is,
On
We-
to the questions.
we have a motion on the table to move forward with, the option was the hybrid waste management plan or to keep the transfer station as is. So there's a motion and a second to move forward with the hybrid waste management plan. All those in favor? Well, to move forward with the RFP. Yeah, I was abbreviating. But it's to move forward with the RFP.
Right.
And then we still have several other issues to go. Okay.
Yep.
But the foundation is to move forward with an RFP for a hybrid waste management plan. It's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Mr. Capson.
Aye.
Ms. Abbott.
Aye.
Mr. Gleason.
Nay.
Mr. Hamilton.
Nay.
Mr. Levette.
Aye.
Dr. Ryan.
Aye.
Ms. Aguirre.
Nay. So the motion passes 4-3. You want me to say the three then? No, it's 4-3 to move forward with the hybrid plan. Now,
Well,
Let's-
no, it's to move forward with the hybrid RFP.
the RFP. yeah,
Not specific,
RFP.
it does not mean that the plan goes forward and the transfer station closes. There
Right,
still is a discussion after that.
right. But we still have to now review the items that would be part of the RFP.
The 4 questions that we have some questions on, so had the council, you know, trying to straighten them all out for us. So the first one is leaf and yard waste.
Yep.
So there's two questions for a decision. Should the town request leaf and yard waste to be collected curbside by the vendor on a weekly schedule using the current accepted 35-week from April 1st to November 30th, with Christmas tree collection done by the vendor on the second week of January? Or should the town request leaf and yard waste to be collected curbside by vendor on a new 22-week schedule with weekly pickups from April 1st to April 30th, and then every other week from May 1st to October 31st, and then back to weekly pickups from November 1st to the second week in December. And then Public Works would continue with the Christmas tree collection on the second week of January. The reason why we broke it down to 35 weeks, but we currently have to 22 weeks, but we're just thinking there was gonna be a cost savings if we brought it down to 22 weeks, because that, when they do yard waste, it is really labor intensive to pick up yard waste. They don't come by with that little one-arm bandit and throw it in the truck, so they have to physically have a crew out there.
I would say the best option of those three would be 1B.
I agree.
I mean, as long as it's not snowing, you know, the DPW guys can pick them up and we make mulch and people take the mulch and use it.
We still do that. That's.
What is 1B?
On the options.
Under leaf and yard debris, item 1B.
It'll be the 22-week schedule.
1B.
Leaf and yard debris.
It's in the letter that was
1A,
written.
1B, 2.
Yeah, you need the letter.
Which was the first,
The first
Attachment?
attack.
It's in the summary letter that was written by Mr. Woodhead to the
Oh,
council
I'm sorry.
as part of the backup.
Sorry.
1B.
One B. I didn't even put my glasses on for it too, and I can see it one day.
So is it your motion second?
Is that a motion?
Sure, I'll make
I
a motion
second,
to get
yes.
to one B.
Okay, so we have a
Get me get to go
motion.
home earlier?
What's that?
Do I get to go home earlier if I say yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, is this the same, is a 1B, because I just found it, is that the same as the Middletown program?
It is.
Okay. Not that I like Middletown that much, but I figure there's too much confusion between us already.
So, Mr. Gleason has a.
You saw my hand.
Yes.
That's how I do it. You could learn something from that. So, just for comment, we are gonna have more yard waste. People should be aware of that now that you've gone from 2,000 people to 5,800, our target.
Yes,
And I saw the dollars projected to $24,000,
correct.
which seems like a small amount of money. But the question is, have we ever thought about negotiating with, the owner of, Bradley Nurseries, rather than mentioning a name, who happens to own a tub grinder and actually mulches and composts and reuses it on his fields?
Isn't that where it goes?
No.
That's where
Yard
it could
waste?
go.
No.
We bring ours to Rhode Island Resource Recovery. The only reason why we bring it to Rhode Island Resource Recovery right now is we're right at the cap for yard waste and we don't pay any tipping fees at Rhode Island Resource Recovery. We just pay the hauling cost to bring it to Rhode Island Resource Recovery. If we bring it down to the other place, you have to pay by the ton to dispose of your yard waste. So you pay disposal by the tonnage and you also pay the hauling cost to bring it there. So we did do a cost comparison. It is a little bit more money to bring it there, but it's closer. You might get it. You might pay a little bit more money to dispose of it, but you might get a little better rate with a vendor for not hauling up to Johnson every day, every once that week.
So you
That-
have looked at it. and
We
it
have
is
looked at it.
potential.
But we will put that, we could put that in as an ad alternate to the RFP if, we could do that too. That wouldn't cost anything for us to do an ad.
Leave it up to the hauler too, to
We can
pick
leave
the
it up to
most
the hauler.
cost-effective way for them to haul the
Right.
yard waste.
We can leave it up to them.
Does Rhode Island Nurseries have the capacity to handle all the yard waste for this town?
I do imagine they can.
You can't sell something you got. I mean, when we have it, we can maybe talk about whether or not anybody's interested in buying it.
What's that, yard
They're,
waste?
they're not buying anything.
We're paying to get
We're-
rid of
we're
it.
paying them
We're
to
paying
take
them
it.
to take it.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that you can't dispose of something and you can't ask somebody to take it if you ain't got it. We don't have any of this yet, so we're doing this and then maybe they'll be interested and we could pay them less than somebody else. Yeah. Right.
Yes.
To be.
This is
or
about
not to be.
schedule, 1B. Do we have a motion
It is.
and a second? All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Hi.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
So part two of this question, should the town impose a weight limit or total of like 50 pounds of yard waste per week? Per container or something to that effect, like maybe like 15 bags? We just need to know that when we put in the RFP, like weekly collection or no limit at all. I mean, it's up to the.
So I have a question. I don't weigh my yard waste very often.
Well,
So I have no concept what 50 pounds of yard waste is.
Can you pick? up-
My, I could pick up 50 pounds.
Yeah, then it's less than 50 pounds.
Fair, fine, fair enough. But how many bags?
How many bags?
I guess my only concern on this one is that like fall cleanup or spring cleanup in April or October, like there's probably maybe just a peak then, like would it be an issue? It's kind of annoying to have yard waste sitting around
Well,
for
it-
a couple weeks to get rid of it.
But you have multiple pickups in April and November. as
You
opposed
have
to-
weekly pickups,
yeah.
correct?
So
But
I
I
think, it's
don't
a-
do yard cleanups in,
I think it's a bag number rather than a weight number.
a bag number makes sense.
I think I don't see anybody doing more than a well-maintained lawn. I don't think you're doing more than 5 bags in a week.
That sounds like a, yeah.
I mean, if you
no
have to
idea.
trim out your,
Okay.
understood, but if you have to trim your bushes or something like that, I mean, you can get around it, but I think 5 bags on an average lawn is a lot.
There'll be a black market for. Here's the thing, logistics. I mean, who's gonna be sitting there counting the bag? Who
The
is-
guy
The guy
picking it
picking it
up.
Waiting.
The guy picking it up.
If you have 6 bags, he's leaving the 6 bag behind. That
So you
week.
have somebody driving down the road, picking up the trash and sitting there and going, hey, no, can't take this one?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what they'll do.
Okay.
But I think
Okay.
a bag limit more than a weight limit, it's easier because
Yeah.
it's too hard to,
Right.
weight is too subjective.
Otherwise, each truck is
Number
going
of
to have a
bags.
scale on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like they're gonna drive around with a scale and then
Right.
Joey's gonna stand on the scale, then he picks up the
Yeah.
bag.
Yeah.
And-
What is a
and-
reasonable limit bag?
I think,
We have our consultant online.
Yeah, Ted's online. I mean, I don't know if Ted has an average, maybe 10.
10 seems like a lot of bags for somebody's weekly trash. I mean, yard waste.
I would have to look at what some of the other municipalities have for a limit. A lot of municipalities have a limit and, but I don't know the number off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
But we could work that into the RFP.
Yeah.
So-
What do you want a bag limit on?
Yes.
A reason.
Weight,
Need a
weight is
motion on
too,
that?
weight is way too much of a headache. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
there's no way to police it. What are they gonna do?
You're
Drive
gonna
around with a
say-
scale?
Not practical.
Do you need a motion?
I would just say 5.
Why don't we work with the consultant?
Yep.
We'll see what a reasonable number is. And before we release the RFP, we'll bring this RFP back to the council so you can see what we've crafted. And then if there's any changes that need to be done.
Perfect.
Makes sense.
I think quite literally, we're getting into the weeds.
Not for my
Come
law.
on, not with a bag.
Okay, so. Do we
Elimination of
really need a
patient-
motion?
No.
For a bag limit, or can we
No.
just?
Yeah.
No, we're just gonna
Yeah,
go with
yes.
a bag limit.
I will make a motion that we're going to a bag limit rather than a weight limit.
Second.
Okay,
Set to be worked out with our consultant. Second.
okay. All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Hi.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
All right, so the next one is the elimination of pay-as-you-throw bags. Both the town and our waste consultant, Ted, expect the elimination of paid bags will attract a larger number of residents to opt into the town's curbside program. However, the elimination of paid bags will also likely result in a negative effect on the target of 35% recycling rate set by Rhode Island Resource Recovery. And therefore, the higher tipping fees for municipal solid waste, as residents tend to be less diligent with their mixed recyclables when they do not have to pay the pay bags or throw away their refuge. Also, just want some key points. The elimination of the pay bags will remove the pay revenue stream, and also the pay bags will require higher monthly fees for households that use curbside program. So,
I'm very much in support of getting rid of the pay-as-you-throw bags. With the 3 options that are presented here, we can do all of them, right? Downsize to the 60-65 gallon.
we could.
Require pay-as-you-throw bags if people have overflow. Because I guess,
I think that'll be minimum.
what's that?
I think that'll be a minimum cost, but yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, no, just, I guess it's nice for people to have an option in case one week they have
Party or something.
extra trash. And then I like the idea of allowing people to upsize the recycling tote to the bigger one. So I would make a motion that we do all 3 of those options.
And that's what San Francisco does. They have 2 bins for each resident. They have a small garbage bin and a very large recycling bin. And it just is more, it's an inducement for the people to actually recycle. It's just more convenient.
No offense, San Francisco is a very pretty city, but I wouldn't want to model anything after them.
It's very pretty. They do a good job handling their waste. Looking at their municipal dump, it has, I was out there in 1980s, my relatives were out there. It was overflowing, but after they implemented the system, it really was dramatically different. So when you give people a practical inducement to recycle, they'll do it.
Yep.
So, but the 3 proposals are not contradictory. They could all flow.
They could, yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
And do you have a second?
We have a
I have a
Okay.
motion. I don't know. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
I have another comment that is tangentially related to this. That another thing that I believe in very strongly that would reduce the amount of household waste is helping people and encouraging people to compost more. We have a great compost pickup program in town. And I know that we probably don't want to muddy the waters with the RFP and try to tack on compost pickup, although I would. I think it would behoove us to at least do a little bit of information distribution and encourage people to sign up for compost pickup. In addition, maybe include a flyer when they get information about the curbside pickup, so more people will sign up for the compost pickup. I think it's a helpful way to reduce some of the regular waste.
Mr. President, I do want to roil the water. I think that's a great idea. I think that we should be having as almost a minimum. And I was thinking maybe the compact station might be the place to do it if it got to have composting. I mean, Louis Escobar used to take half the composting in town for his pigs, or a lot of it. But I mean, it just makes such sense. And that is so much of the stuff we're putting in our garbage. And so is it possible at this late point to actually include an element talking about composting?
We did talk about it amongst ourselves about the compost. Clean Ocean Access does have a company that they're partners with that does
Blackbird
composting. Correct. So they do have a company that comes around and does that. And we agree with Ms. Abbott too, that we'll put flyers out to and point them in that direction towards Clean Ocean Access, because we don't want to keep adding costs to this RFP, because we don't want the price for the sticker cost to be more than what it's going to cost for someone who already has. curbside pickup.
Yeah,
So
and I
we're
just
adding comparison.
don't want to, I think it's not great for us to make people feel like they have to participate in the compost pickup. I think it's probably good at this point to make it very, people can choose to participate if they want. So if we could just make that information easily
You want it
available.
to flow organically.
Yes.
So
I'm good, man.
if this
I'm on a
program,
roll.
when this program gets going, there's gonna be a lot of public information, a lot of public outreach that's gonna have to be associated with this. To
Yeah.
make sure everyone knows what's going on.
Excellent, thank you.
So we have a, Mr. Gleason, Mr. President. Just a couple things brought to, sure you've all read this, but I'll just remind you that Ted Peets, who headed the recycling committee for years, wrote some notes, and he actually had put together the first bid proposal from what I understand. So he's very active in this whole thing and points out that, while I was a liaison to the recycling committee, when it happened that we went to the pay-as-you-throw bags, I was not a big supporter of them. However, it did raise the money that we needed to keep the transfer station open, people could afford it, et cetera. So his concern and my concern is we're gonna lose X amount of revenue. Do we have a number from our consultant, what we expect to lose in revenue by not having pay-as-you-throw bags?
Well,
That's number one.
right now with 2,000 residents that we have right now using a transfer station, the cost estimated for the pay-as-you-throw bags is $250,000, $225,000. So if you add in another 4,000 people on top of that, you're talking $750,000 that we're going to lose in revenue for the transfer station.
Oh, excuse me, if I could just finish. So you're theoretically gonna lose that revenue. I'm not gonna win that argument. But anyways, I just want to point that out. He also talks about, as he puts it, elimination of the pay-as-you-throw bags will result in a negative effect on the target of 35%. If you don't make the 35%, now you pay higher tipping fees. Have we computed a number that says, because we're more lackadaisical, we're not using the same system, do we have a number that shows higher tipping fees?
We haven't figured that out yet because we don't know what the tipping fees are going to
Okay.
be. Right
In his suggestions, or the original proposal shows sizing the default tote size from 90/95 gallons to 60/65, which I understand, I believe is your motion. May help the recycling rate by creating limited room for the MSW, forcing the residents to recycle more to have more room for waste. His suggestion was to go to a 32 gallon bucket, same size bucket that I bring once a week to the compact station. And having up to a 95, 95 for the recyclables. So we're basically saying the same message we had to all the people that have used the transfer station over the years. You need to pull that stuff out of your trash bag, put it into a bigger bag and recycle. That gets the recycling rate up. This would be incentive for people that aren't going to want to hear this, to have a smaller bucket on the road for their trash. It forces them to do the recycling that we at the transfer station are doing now.
That's what Dr. Ryan just said.
I don't think they use a
understand.
32-gallon bucket in San Francisco, but I might be mistaken.
But the only caution I would say here is if we're gonna offer 3 size totes, they've got to make, stamp and distribute 3 size totes. So we're adding to the cost. So
We don't offer 3 size totes. You
So
offer
it'd be
a,
the small 31, I don't even know if that's possible. We'll ask the consultant. And then the 95 gallon upgrade. Is that what we're saying?
I think. Sorry,
don't-
isn't, what's like a standard municipal garbage tote? Is it the
60 to
60?
65.
Yeah, I think we need to stick to the standard size.
You know, I think as we go forward, I am wholly committed to bumping up, advancing as much recycling as possible. Okay, I don't know if that's a weed we necessarily have to get into right now. All of the pickup I see has recycling and trash. And it would strike me as that's a reasonable thing. If in fact we find we're not getting enough recycling, then we can probably adjust somehow to deal with it. But I think we can go forward with it as it is right now. The only other question I had, my understanding is that the $350,000 you mentioned from the compact fee, that's going to pay off the compactor. That's not an item in our budget.
the 250 bag fee goes to pay for the transfer station enterprise fund.
Okay.
It doesn't go into the general fund.
Okay, so that money isn't coming out of our taxes right now. Okay, thank you.
But if you did pay as you throw, it would encourage more people to recycle, which
Yeah.
would lower the cost of the new program.
Interesting
And the tipping
point,
fees.
because when, I'm sorry.
But it doesn't, right? Because if you look at the projections, you know, if you take the pay as you throw, just with one large bag per week, you're already more expensive than if we do the pay as you throw without the bags. So, I mean, the pay as you throw is cheaper with the pay as you throw curbside is cheaper for people that aren't throwing away trash. But anybody who's using one bag a week is already kind of getting to the max. So
Yeah, an
it's
extra.
kind of like the lost revenue is a moot point, I think. And I think there's other ways to incentivize added recycling. And to the point about the 35%, I think that was those are the percentage of recycling rates that we were seeing at the transfer station. Do we know what the percentage of recycling rate is for waste management, for example?
No, we don't.
Because
Okay,
because
I
they,
know a lot of people do curbside pickup
they
and
but they use single stream, so everything goes into one truck. So you can't really measure that.
waste
Well, they
management
sep-
truck
they
has
asked
two
me to
separate
separate-
compartments for trash.
Does
and
not.
for, recycling.
Does not.
Let me interrupt you for a second. One, I was always told when we first started this conversation, like 40 years ago, that curbside was going to be a better recycling vehicle than throwing it yourself. Okay,
Right.
two, if in fact they are going into one stream, then they have some sort of recycling at the tail end. Okay, it's not like they're not recycling. I have two bins, one for recycling, one, I have never watched the people to see if they put it into one thing. But the fact is, you recycle at some point. Now, if in fact we go out on RFP, we might want to say, look, we don't care. You know, give it a big old garbage thing, as long as you recycle it at some point. That you put
we
it
do
in the
care.
stream.
We do care about the
Okay.
recycling and
What's that?
they do have split container.
I have
trucks that
watched it.
Yeah, they do.
They do, they flip over a door, they'll
Looks
dump
like
the
a
trash
single
for us and they'll flip
truck,
over the
and
door.
It is a single truck, but
It's
When they
split,
pick up the arm, there's a little door that swings open and it goes into a separate section of that truck.
so the truck is split.
I wasn't the one that accused them of doing.
No.
I mean, I felt like an idiot because I put my recycling there and I put my other thing there and it's kind of like. And now somebody says, oh, no, they just throw it into the same thing.
So let's get back to the,
Want to talk about San Francisco?
no, I want to get through one A, B, and C. So,
This is Ted, talking for a minute. I would not recommend going to a 32-gallon trash cart. And that is a change from what we were working with about 10 years ago, but our contamination rates for recycling are so high these days that what we've discovered is that 32 gallons isn't enough. And if they overflow on a regular basis, people tend to put their trash in with the recycling and increase contamination. So I think you're better off at 64 gallons. That's a pretty reasonable cart size for MSW or for trash, and either a 64 or a 90-gallon cart for recycling. I do think that having pay-as-you-throw for overflow, if you don't want to go with pay-as-you-throw for everything, pay-as-you-throw for overflow is a really good kind of bridge to make sure that there's capacity for people to get rid of all of their trash. And just to reiterate, while there is single stream recycling at the Rhode Island Resource Recovery Facility, that is all of the commingled recycling in one truck and garbage in another truck, or a split truck with recycling in one side and garbage in the other. They're not commingling the garbage with recycling.
we have a motion for. Can I just finish A, B comments? Yeah. I knew I would get defeated on the 32 gallons. You could always get 2 of those, but I'll end it there. But there was a time when our own lacrosse people would bring MEGA in, and their bin up there that they use for all the events, you put your trash and your recyclables in the same bin. So there are vendors out there that have their own MRF, municipal recycling facility, and dump it out and sort it there. I don't know where the waste management is at that point, but
I don't.
anyways, let's get on with the vote.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second
Yes.
for to accept 1A, 1B, and 1C. All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Nay.
Mr. Hamilton?
Nay.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 5-2.
The next one is the transfer station utilization. So the staff understands that the Headley Street transfer station operations will remain in a limited form to allow residents to dispose of the bulky items and diversions of other recyclables, which not all are collected at the curbside. So the version expected to remain at the transfer station include bulky waste, asphalt, brick and concrete or ABC, waste oil, metal, white goods, appliances with Freon, mattresses, and box springs, propane tanks without valves, a car and regular truck tires, books and clothing. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that that's what we're going to be doing at the transfer station. So the next question is the proposed transfer station operation hours. That's the biggest one that we kind of have to hammer out. We came up with Saturday, 7:30 to 4 p.m., Sunday, 7:30 to 12 p.m., and then Wednesday, 7:30 to 12 p.m. Is that adequate, or I don't know how you guys wanted to do that?
The problem with Sunday is the cost.
It
It's time
is.
and a half. I think if it's just, I mean, right now on a Saturday, you breeze right through there. I think one day for yard waste and the number of people were diversionary items and the number of people who are gonna buy a transfer sticker
Okay.
is gonna be low. I don't think we need Sunday. Just 2 days a week should be enough.
Yeah, Saturday and Wednesday, so that you have one weekend
Yeah.
and then at least one weekday if anybody works on weekends.
Or
Yeah, I got a comment as well, though. So this is just for the diversion items. So it's not yard waste.
Not yard waste.
No, yeah,
It's not yard waste, but I think if you're gonna look at the hours, I mean, I thought a lot of people go in the evening because, is there any option for is there any consideration for evening during the week?
you could do a Wednesday from noon to 4, or you could do a different hours. We didn't set it. We were just thinking that these were the 3 hours that were
Yeah.
spread
mean,
out.
it's only the diversionary items, so it's not, so I think you'd have a lot less frequent use.
Yeah.
But I just think, like a Saturday and then.
Saturday all day and then, yeah. maybe like
Day
4
and an
hours.
evening or something, just because. Just something along those lines. If we're gonna offer the hours, I think, a Saturday and then,
Go what, like a 3 to 7 or something like that.
something like that, because I know that, that's just a convenient time for some folks.
I think can we maybe just go ahead and see how it works, and if we get a lot of.
Can adjust
feedback, we
it.
can change.
Well, you can't, not really. No, because then you're gonna act, that's an amendment to the contract. So you wanna spell out in the RFP when you're gonna do this.
Are we signing a contract right now?
No, but the bids are gonna be based on the hours that you're doing it.
So why don't we put, if we think it's gonna be 24 hours or, a total. over,
That's what we're
why
trying
don't
to
we
decide.
just- And we'll figure out what the times will be.
Is there a day currently that the transfer station is open in the evening, like past 4
Tuesday,
PM?
Tuesdays
Tuesday,
and Thursdays,
Thursdays,
Tuesdays and Thursdays, until what time?
7.
till 7.
I would say, yeah, Wednesday from noon to 7 and then Saturday from 7 to 4.
34.
Well, you're teaching old dogs new tricks though, because it's closed on Wednesdays.
Oh, and Tuesday or Wednesday, one of those days.
Tuesday or Wednesday, whichever.
We make it a motion, I'll second it.
That's my motion.
Second, whatever.
One day during the week, either Tuesday or Thursday.
Okay.
Till 7 PM. And then Saturday as proposed.
From noon to 7 PM, is that what you said? Or-
I think so. That sounds like a reasonable time.
And Saturday is proposed, and that's it, for Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so right now you've got 18 hours proposed and you've just dropped it to maybe 13 or so. But my initial thoughts were Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. Just have one of those Thursday being in evening hours. 18 hours a week, coming down from whatever we have now, 50 hours.
We have 48 and a half hours currently. And right now proposed is 17 and a half hours.
But it's a lot less. It's just
Now you're down to 2
diversion,
days though.
but it's only diversion stuff.
Right, again, we don't have any experience to base any of this on because
Yeah.
we don't have, all right. So right now, we're just kind of guessing. And we're actually like putting around with numbers. Why don't we ask you to just get a good idea when you think people actually show up with this stuff? And put it in the RFP. It's gonna be brought back to us anyway, right?
Yep.
So
Might as well
just
get it right the
put it
first
in
time.
and we'll butts with it then.
People bring diversionary items every day. So you can't,
Actually, the state public works department used to go on my property in off of Boyd's Lane and drop it there. It's just one of those things.
I understand, but to create the best RFP possible, we should define all the attributes as best as
As
possible.
best we can.
So they're not guessing as to when we might want it open. So what
Do
I'm
not
saying,
let the perfect be the enemy of the
Good.
doable. Why
if,
don't we just
if we do
this?
Saturday, 7:30 to 4, and either Tuesday or Thursday from 12 to 7, for diversionary items only, that is
I believe
plenty of
there's a
time.
motion on the floor.
Right.
That is.
That I seconded.
That's
That
the
we are,
motion.
so if you're amending that motion, amend the motion.
That's not amendment. That is the motion.
That is the
That
motion.
is the motion.
That's the-
That's the motion. Okay, I'm seconding it. Let's rock and roll.
I'm all set. Okay.
As far as the hours at the transfer station, I wouldn't change a thing. It's perfect the way it is.
This is if the council decides to go with the RFP for curbside pickup with diversionary items only at the transfer station.
Just for curbside.
Bulky items. would still
If
be going to
the-
the transfer
if-
station.
Oh, when it goes to that for bulky, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, is that a- I can vote.
Mr. Katzman,
Aye.
Ms. Abbott,
Aye.
Mr. Gleason,
Nay.
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Levesque,
Aye.
Dr. Ryan,
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Motion passes 6-1.
So now the second question is, how often do you want the transfer station to be open? Do you want this weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or quarterly?
Quarterly.
Weekly. I make a motion that it be open weekly.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Gleason?
Nay.
Mr. Hamilton?
Nay.
Sorry.
Dr. Levesque, I'm a doctor.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Ms. Ryan?
Motion passes 5.
This is the last question. The single hauler estimated numbers for residents for the RFP. This is the most difficult part of the program, to estimate the number of residents who will sign up for the program. An educated guess would be that about 5,800 households would sign up out of the 7,200 eligible households, but this will depend on the prices received from the bidding vendors. Clearly, an executed contract would resolve this, but it would generate a significant amount of pushback from existing haulers. The town has witnessed existing haulers advertising lower introductory offers to Portsmouth residents after the transfer station sticker has been announced. And this may draw residents away from the town's curbside program, at least initially. So Ted might be able to talk about this a little more than I can. They can pass an ordinance to do a single hauler in the town if you wanted to. But I'd leave that up to Ted, our consultant, to talk about that. Ted, do you have anything else to add?
The conversation I've heard tonight sounded, and I'm just guessing on this, that there was a fair amount of consensus that a exclusive contract with a single hauler to reduce truck traffic was a good idea, and I would advocate for that. I think you'll have the lowest cost contract if you go that route. Middletown did not go that route, although it was discussed for a long time. When we originally did the Middletown contract, I was the consultant for them at the time. But your best price would be if you had an exclusive contract with a single hauler to service all of the residents in the municipality. Subscription service, what you have now, is typically significantly more expensive than a single hauler that's under a municipal contract. But you can do it either way.
Mr. President, I would move that we have a single payer. Will that get your vote?
All in.
Single
hauler.
exclusive contractor.
I'll second that for discussion. So I think my question was answered. Is the mechanism to do that is we have an ordinance that where you have to use the town hauler
For residential waste.
for residential
Correct,
waste?
Ted?
Yes, that's, and I'm not a lawyer, so you obviously would need to get this approved by your town attorney, but I am fairly confident, I don't live in Rhode Island, but I'm fairly confident that you would have the capacity to enact an ordinance and then require a single hauler and only the hauler that was awarded the contract to service all the residents in the municipality. And that is likely to be your lowest cost and certainly lowest truck traffic if you were to go that route.
Yeah. If I may, I think that is without a doubt our best option. It's the way to get the most competitive RFP and the most competitive prices and to reduce the traffic. And I think the message that we all need to keep in mind is that we're not trying to force any particular hauler down anybody's throat. We're just trying to get the best deal possible for our town. Same way that you go, car shopping or whatever. We're putting this out to RFP to get the best possible outcome for the town.
Ditto.
All right, Mr. Gleason. What you're saying is now we're going to put an ordinance that says all 7,200 eligible households have to use XYZ contracting. That's like sending everybody to the Toyota dealer and making them buy the same car. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a group purchasing agreement.
It's different from our electric thing. We had an opt-out program, and this should be an opt-in or opt-out program. That's the only way the democracy runs. This is socialism at its finest.
Well, just to respond to that, if I may real quickly, you can opt out by not purchasing a ticket for your curbside, and then you have to figure out a different way to get rid of your residential waste, I suppose.
Mr. President, do you have a separate electric wire coming to your house? Do you have a separate,
Not really sure. Do you?
But you have your own road?
Yeah.
All utilities, and this is a utility,
are usually done in some form of
My concern
not
was being
communist
able
or
to buy,
socialist, some sort
to
of
buy
reasonable
my-
fashion with one outfit.
No,
One at a
I can
time.
buy
One
energy
at a
from
time.
anybody I want.
What's that?
I can buy electricity from anybody I want.
No, you can't.
Yes, I
The
can.
wires that come across are from National Grid.
No.
Your actual product
just
is coming from somewhere else. And the thing is, I wouldn't have
You're
said a
paying.
word, but you said this is socialism. And no offense, but don't describe me. I've told you a couple
I
times.
didn't call you,
Don't describe
didn't
me.
I didn't
I
describe
think
you.
you're
I
a
wouldn't-
MAGA
I-
Republican, but I don't say
I
that.
wouldn't know how to describe you.
Gentlemen,
I wouldn't know how to describe you, other than being unruly and
okay,
unbelievable.
so
The question was, do I have an option to use somebody else to come to my
No.
house?
No.
She says I do.
no, there's
She
no,
says I can make an arrangement.
No, you have to figure out how to get rid of your trash. That's what she said.
I can call somebody that didn't get the bid.
no.
We're gonna have an
I'll be in
ordinance.
violation of the
apparently, and if you
ordinance.
violate the
That-
ordinance, I assume there's gonna be a penalty associated with it.
So I have a.
That's why I say socialism.
But can I tell you something?
Okay.
That would mean that we're violating the contract with whoever we hire to do it. They are basing their amount of the bid on the fact that they have an exclusive market. If they don't have that exclusive market, they don't have any ability to give us a low price. So if everybody is able to go out and get their own, you don't have an exclusive contract. All right?
If I may.
I have,
You're
no, I
just
have a
taking,
thought.
you're just taking people's choice out of what they do in their daily business. That's not the way you do business. All right.
I just have a
respect your
thought.
opinion, your opinions, you can respect mine.
I just have a question. Mr. Woodhead, and actually for our consultant. If we have the ability to have an ordinance that says you can only have one provider, right? Right now, I know they talk about minimum numbers, but we have 3 or 4 different haulers that are all probably ranging somewhere between 500 and 1,000 customers, right? Something along those lines. So why can't we have an ordinance that says, or is this a consideration? The elephant in the room, right? Why can't we have an ordinance that said, okay, we're gonna have one hauler for curbside, right? Which is what the private folks are doing now. And still have the ability to keep the transfer station open for the other 2,000 people that do not wanna, there's your option, right? Because if you only have the one curbside option, right? And that's the only game in town, then you're stuck. I mean, that's my thinking is you're stuck.
Yep.
At least right now, you have a choice. If you don't do curbside, you don't have another choice.
Mr. President.
Yeah.
If you leave that open, then you're not having an exclusive contract. If you don't have an exclusive contract, you're not gonna get the low bid. If you don't have the ability to have a low bid, you're not gonna have any of the waste haulers competing.
You do have an exclusive contract. You're the only provider of curbside pickup. You'd be the only provider.
And that
That'd be
means that
exclusive.
everybody can sit there and you're gonna be the management person saying, all right, I want to bid here. But guess what? Half the people can decide to go to their own drop off if they want to, because I don't get to control that. If you want to have the thing, you have to have the exclusivity.
No, I see your point. But I think that's where, something that we've always had is a choice. And that's where I just think there's the disagreement, or that's where I think I have a disagreement here is that, you don't have any other choice. And, the argument that we heard before from the haulers were, they were competing with, they needed a certain minimum number. But your minimum number is gonna be 4,000 people, or however many people are using that other service now. So I mean, that's still if it's working for a hauler to have 800 clients, why wouldn't it be beneficial for that guy to have 4,000 clients?
I understand that completely, but now you're keeping the transfer station open right now,
Still an enterprise fund, right?
and you're gonna have an enterprise fund for curbside, so the cost is gonna be astronomical, because you're gonna be combining both of these together. So right now, if you have the transfer station operating at $800,000 without the page of throw bags, then you're gonna put $1.5 million in curbside collection. Now you're up to, $2.3 million in a sticker cost that we have to.
No, I'm just thinking, I would just think you'd have an enterprise fund for the transfer station and an enterprise fund for curbside. Why couldn't they be separate? I'm just thinking, I mean, I don't know. I don't know, I'm just thinking if, why can't we have it both? Why can't, I guess, maybe it's not feasible, maybe the consultant can tell us that. I mean, I understand, here's the thing, I mean, we need to vote on this piece here, but the option might be to further think about that. I mean, obviously, this is what's before us. We can move forward with
We
this.
could certainly look at this.
Yeah.
But just so, you know, to put a fine point on it, that's not what we were asked to do.
No,
We
I-
were
I-
asked to
no, I-
develop a hybrid solution.
Right. I know.
Keep the transfer station open for diversionary waste, get rid of the pay-as-you-throw bags and get curbside pickup. So
No,
that's
absolutely.
what we were fashioning tonight. We certainly take a look at this. And if that's the direction, we absolutely will. But we can't keep kicking the can down the road.
No,
This is gonna take a long time to implement.
No, I understand, but I think here, the issue for tonight is, you know, like we just said, you need to go with one hauler. So whether it's the 5,800 households or 4,000 households, it's gonna be one hauler.
Right.
So that's,
Yeah.
that's the issue. Are we gonna move forward with one hauler? The answer is yes,
No,
Mr. President,
or we haven't voted, but.
no, but the motions is to adopt an ordinance to bar any other,
Yeah. One
Right.
hauler.
which is fine. I mean, that's just basically, we're hiring somebody to do our municipal trash hauling. I mean,
Correct.
Bristol right now has their own municipal trash hauling. I'm reading through their whole kit and caboodle of stuff. But we're just paying someone, we're just gonna be paying XYZ company to be our trash hauler rather than having a full department at DPW to do it.
And then in 5 years, we're gonna go out to bid again. This is just how municipal bids work.
and can I add one thing? The preface to all of this was, are we gonna commit? I mean, if we're not gonna commit, then let's not waste everybody's time.
I think you've already committed because you got the vote.
Okay, then
4 to
let's
3
commit
to-
to the last part, which is that we're going to, I mean, when the ordinance comes around, well, guess what? I mean, it's gonna be a vote, and if we don't vote it up, then we're gonna have a problem. But right now, let's finish it up. The key issue was, are we going to do a single with an ordinance? I believe there's a motion on the floor. If there's not, I will make it. And I hope that we can get a second and do it.
I think we have a motion in a second already.
We do.
Okay.
We do have a motion in a second, so I just want to close it out. All right.
Okay, so just to go back a little bit, what Mr. Rayner was directed to do, did it include coming up with an ordinance at that time? I don't believe it did.
No.
So basically, problem with the ordinance to me is it guarantees that it takes the option away from people in town. Okay, so basically, we've gone out to bid twice. And with the intent of those bids was to have one hauler in town. But it was not to enact an ordinance to say, you have to use this guy. That's where the fear was, not enough people signed up. So now we've put the fear in people that basically you have to do this, you have to do that, and you don't have any other choices by going to an ordinance. And that's just 180 degrees from where we started. But it's a guarantee to push this down people's throats. And I appreciate your comments, Mr. President. I think the way to go is to try and treat everybody, give them an option that works for them, rather than just, if I don't agree with this plan, I should be able to hire whoever I want. I think everybody else in Portsmouth should be able to do the same. Thank you.
All right, so let's just finish up. Yeah? We haven't, motion in a second.
Nancy Grebe, 110 Thayer Drive, the back row. We have a question. You're talking about the ordinance that doesn't exist yet. If you limit the haulers, what does that do when I had work done on my deck? I had a private hauler come in and put a dumpster in my yard, and it would take anything. So I put my trash in it that week. Is that going to ban me from having a private hauler put a dumpster to
No,
replace?
that won't change, because even if you don't have curbside pickup, you can hire a dumpster. and have it put in a new driveway. So anybody who uses the transfer station can hire a dumpster and have it in their driveway during construction.
But if you're saying you're limiting haulers, that's a hauler.
We're limiting haulers for curbside pickup of residential solid waste.
Okay, so then 3 or 4 of my neighbors can get together and once a month have a dumpster put in and put our trash. Fine,
If you
that's
want to
a
look at a
hauler.
dumpster parked in your driveway once a month,
My eyes are tired, so I'm gonna ask a question. Where in the agenda, in this, in the letter we're using as an agenda item from Mr. Woodhead, was this ordinance?
page 2, single hauler and estimated number of residents per RFP.
Based on Middletown experience, only roughly 8% of the eligible households signed up. Be a key issue, depending on the prices of vendors. Clearly, an exclusive contract would resolve this, but would generate a significant amount of pushback from existing homes. So that is where the conflict.
Yeah, but there's no mention of an ordinance.
We're not voting on the ordinance, we're voting on the intent that will lead to the ordinance.
The question was presented, how would this be enforced? And the answer from staff was via an ordinance.
No, that's all right. I will side with those who think that using an ordinance to force people to use a hauler is a very bad idea and reveals a weakness of your planning. If you can't make this work voluntarily, using force is not going to be very beneficial either. People are going to rebel against the system. So I realize that we're not, I guess, not voting on the ordinance tonight, but we're voting on apparently somebody to write an ordinance.
No, it's being voted on to have an exclusive contract. That exclusive contract, if it comes in at the right price, would require an ordinance to make it exclusive. Which would be the same, as I mentioned, would be the same thing as if you live in Bristol. The only difference is Bristol has their own department that picks up your trash. Portsmouth would have an outside vendor being our DPW picking up trash. That would be the only difference. And the goal in the long run over the next 5, 10, 15 years would be to put it into the budget so that your taxes are paying for it. So you don't even have to worry about it.
Well, I think that's going to be,
It's a heavy lift.
that's going to depend on a lot of things. And I think everybody here understands that. But we are clearly stepping into the force business. Rather, we were involved in
Mr.
the
Fitzmaurice, it's a
motivation
force,
business instead.
It's a force that occurs in almost every American city.
Oh, and can I just, if freedom to throw away your trash is the freedom that you are willing to run up Bunker Hill on, please. You forced everybody down in Island Park to have the septic system done. That's because you can't pollute the water. We have trash problem. We're trying to address it. This is not, the issue upon which democracies fall. This is a reasonable way to deal with a consistent problem. And I think we should commit to it and get it done.
And for the record, we didn't force the people in Island Park to get their septic systems done. We had everybody in town has to have their septic systems inspected and checked.
And gee, how many people did that really impact?
Many, my neighbor across the street had it.
Well,
last week.
everybody down in Island Park was impacted, so please don't
Not-
tell me it was
Not
fair.
everybody.
All right,
Please don't tell me it was equal.
Or do we have a trash problem in town?
let's try to
We're
finish
making
up
it a
here.
problem.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to express my opinion. I think one vendor for the hauler, I think is a bad idea. So like again, a lot of big companies, say like Waste Management, they're a multi-billion-dollar, international kind of company. And so I think, it's like kind of like the Walmart, so the thing is that they will probably bid and they'll probably bid very low because again, they want to be able just to get that business. Then once you drive everyone else, all the other haulers out, then next time you go into contract, you either have one or maybe even two. But again, what they'll do is that they'll raise prices more for the future. You know, except instead of you get like one, if you get like a couple of vendors, like for multiple parts of the town, at least you kind of keep that competition. So yes, I understand that it will probably be more, a little bit more than, you know, if we just went with one exclusive person. But I'm still worried about the future, is that if you eliminate all those vendors, you know, again, they're a for-profit company, you know, they have the fiduciary responsibility of making as much money as possible. That's all. Thank you very much.
I think we got one more, time for one more.
Thank you. Horst Slabicki, 35 Hathaway Drive. Mr. President, you brought up the point about having two enterprise funds, one for the transfer station, one for curbside pickup. And the town administrator said that they could look at it if there was directed to do that. Could you direct the town administrator to look into that? I don't know if that's possible at this meeting or not, but just a question asked. Thank you.
Well, we have a motion and a second on the to go to a single hauler. All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Nay.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Abstain.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
I'm gonna say nay. So it was
So
three,
it's 4-3.
no, three,
4-2 with one abstain.
yeah, 4-2, yeah.
We just wasted that, right?
Okay. You all set?
I'm all set right now. I didn't know if they wanted to make another motion for that.
Oh, no,
Sorry,
that's,
go ahead.
it's a separate issue. I mean, to look into the other thing, it's a separate issue at this point.
Right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay,
4-2.
yeah, 4-2-1 in favor. Yeah, no, pass. Single polar pass. Okay, so correspondence.
Move that they be received and placed on file.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye, motion passes 7-0. Future meetings, this coming Thursday, we have our workshop. Will be at the high school. Followed by our June 12th meeting. June 14th is our budget hearing on the Wednesday, and then June 26th.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Levesque?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye, motion passes 7-0.
I will not be able to.